The Stallion had broken 32 men. She was supposed to be number 33. Dust swirled around the corral as Anmei stepped forward, 18 years old and worth less than the horse she faced. Diablo, black as midnight, eyes wild with fury, had earned his name in blood and shattered bones. The ranch hands laughed. Owen Grayson smirked. She was just a girl, traded like cargo to settle a dead man's debt. Tame the untamable, he'd said, or get out. But when their eyes met across that dirt ring, something shifted. He saw rage. She saw herself. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The sun hung low and mean over the Grayson Ranch, turning everything the color of old copper. And May had been standing in the dirt for 3 hours now, watching Owen Grayson pace back and forth in front of her like she was livestock he couldn't quite figure the value of. She wasn't supposed to be here. Hell, she wasn't supposed to be anywhere. 2 weeks ago, she'd been serving tables at Chen's restaurant in Sacramento, saving every dollar she could scrape together. Then Chen died. Heart attack, sudden and cruel. And his brother showed up with paperwork she'd never seen before. Loans, guarantees, her name signed in her father's hand on documents dated years back, when she was still a child. Collateral, they called it. She called it a lie. But lies with official stamps carry more weight than truth spoken by an 18-year-old girl with nothing. So here she stood, in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, on a ranch that looked like the earth itself had given up. Wooden fences leaned at angles that defied physics. The bunkhouse sagged under its own weight. Even the main house, 2 stories of weathered timber and peeling paint, seemed to be slowly surrendering to the desert. "You know how to clean?" Owen finally asked. His voice was rough, like gravel being crushed. "Yes." "Cook?" "Some." "Handle a horse?" And May hesitated. She'd ridden exactly twice in her life, both times at a fair, both times on ponies that looked half dead from boredom. "I can learn." Owen snorted. He was a big man, maybe 50, with a face that had been handsome once before the sun and whiskey got to it. His shirt was stained with sweat and dust, and his boots were cracked leather held together by habit. "Can learn," he repeated, shaking his head. "Chen's brother said you were good for the debt, $3,000. You know what $3,000 means out here?" She did. It meant she wasn't leaving. "I can work." "Everyone can work. Question is whether you're worth feeding." Behind Owen, a handful of men had gathered near the corral, pretending not to watch. And May counted 6 of them, all wearing the same expression of vague amusement. New meat for the grinder. She recognized the look. She'd seen it in restaurant kitchens, in the eyes of men who thought a girl alone was an invitation. One of them, tall and thick-shouldered with a face like a hammer, called out, "She going to muck stalls, boss? Could use someone for the shit work." A few others laughed. Owen ignored them, still studying An Mei. "You're Chinese?" "American," she said flatly. "But your people?" "American," she repeated. Something flickered in his eyes. Not respect, exactly, but maybe recognition. He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Here's the situation, girl. I don't need another cook. Got Martinez for that. Don't need a maid. Ranch hands clean up after themselves or live in their own filth don't matter to me. What I need—" He paused, glancing toward the corral. "What I need is something else entirely." And May followed his gaze. That's when she saw the horse. It stood alone in the far corral, separated from the other animals by double fencing. Even from a distance, she could see it was different, bigger, darker. The way it held itself, head high, every muscle coiled, reminded her of a storm barely contained. "That's Diablo," Owen said. "Devil horse. Meanest son of a bitch ever born. Bought him 2 years ago from a trader who swore he was just spirited. Spirited." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That animal's put 8 men in the hospital, broke Tommy Garcia's leg in 3 places, cracked Ethan's ribs so bad he still can't breathe right. Last month he threw Gable, that's the big guy who just mouthed off, threw him so hard he was unconscious for 2 days. Why keep him?" Owen's jaw tightened. "Because I don't like losing." And May looked at the horse again. From here she could see the scars on its hide, the way it moved with a limp on its left foreleg. Someone had hurt it. Badly. Repeatedly. 32 men have tried to break that horse, Owen continued. 32. Best riders I could find. Cowboys, rodeo champions, even brought in some Navajo horse whisperer from Arizona. Nothing. That animal won't be broken. Then why try? Because, Owen stopped, searching for words. Because if I can't master one damn horse on my own land, what's that say? I got 60 horses here. Good stock. But that one, he pointed. That one's special, fast, strong, worth more money than anything else in this valley if someone could just ride the bastard. But nobody can. So he's worthless, worse than worthless. He's a symbol. Every hand who works here knows Owen Grayson's got a horse he can't handle. And May waited. She could feel where this was going, could sense the trap closing. Chen's brother said you were resourceful, Owen said. Said you survived things you shouldn't have. That true? I'm here. That you are. Owen pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, took a long drag. Here's my offer. You tame that horse, I clear your debt. Every penny. You walk away free. The men by the corral had gone quiet, listening now. And if I can't, then you work it off like normal. $3,000 at $50 a month, plus room and board. Do the math. 5 years. Minimum. And that was if she didn't eat much. Why me? And May asked. You said 32 men failed, professional riders. What makes you think? I don't, Owen interrupted. Truth is, I think you'll fail same as everyone else. But Martinez bet me $100 you wouldn't even try, and I'm bored enough to take that action. Plus, he shrugged. Maybe being small helps, less weight, and I figure you're desperate enough to actually commit, not just showboat for the other hands. It was the cruelest kind of honesty. He didn't believe in her. He was entertaining himself with her failure. And May looked at the horse again. It was watching them now, head turned their direction, ears forward. Even from here, she could see the intelligence in its eyes, the calculation. I'll do it, she said. Owen's eyebrows rose. Just like that? You're giving me a chance to be free. Only an idiot says no to that. Or someone with sense, one of the ranch hands called out. That horse is going to kill you, girl. She turned to face them. 6 men, all grinning like this was the best joke they'd heard in weeks. The big one, Gable, was smiling widest. Maybe, she said, but at least I'll die trying something that matters. That wiped the smiles off a few faces. Owen studied her for another moment, then nodded. Your funeral. Martinez will show you where you're sleeping. Tomorrow morning, you start with Diablo, but tonight, he pointed toward a pile of tack near the barn. You sort through that gear, find anything that might fit, and you learn the basics. I'm not sending you in there completely stupid. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, girl. You haven't met him up close. The bunkhouse smelled like sweat, tobacco, and leather that had seen better decades. And May got a corner spot, a thin mattress on a metal frame, separated from the men's area by a curtain someone had rigged up years ago. It was stained and torn in places, offering privacy only in theory. Martinez turned out to be a wiry man in his 50s with kind eyes and hands that moved with constant purpose. He brought her dinner, beans, cornbread, coffee so strong it could strip paint, and sat on a crate while she ate. Boss serious about this? He asked. And May nodded, mouth full. That's insane. You know that, right? That horse is... He searched for words. I've worked ranches my whole life, seen ornery animals, seen mean ones, seen ones so stubborn you'd swear they were part mule. Diablo's different. He's not just wild, he's angry. At what? Everything. Everyone. The world. Martinez shook his head. We don't know his history. Owen bought him off a trader who was passing through. Said the horse came from somewhere up north, some ranch that went under. But the way that animal acts, someone hurt him bad. Real bad. And now, he hurts back. Everyone who approaches him? Everyone who tries to dominate him, yeah. We've tried everything. Ropes, hobbles, starting gates, sedation, you name it. He fights every time. Won't eat if we're watching. Won't drink if someone's near. The only time he's calm is when he's alone. And May finished the beans, set the plate down. Can I see him? Up close? Now? Unless there's a better time. Martinez considered this, then shrugged. Your death wish, not mine. Come on. They walked through the cooling evening air, boots crunching on gravel. The ranch was settling into night, horses in the main corral standing hip-shot and drowsy, chickens already roosted, a dog somewhere barking at shadows. But Diablo's corral was separate, isolated behind the barn where the good animals wouldn't have to see him. As they approached, May could hear him moving, the sound of hooves in dirt, the occasional snort. Martinez stopped about 10 feet from the fence. This is close enough for me, he said. You want to go further? That's on you. And May stepped forward. The horse appeared from the shadows like something conjured. Up close, he was massive. At least 16 hands, maybe more. Pure black except for a small white star on his forehead. His coat was scarred, old wounds marking his shoulders and flanks. But it was his eyes that stopped her. They burned. Not with wildness, but with something colder. Calculation. Assessment. This wasn't an animal acting on instinct. This was rage with purpose. Hey, May said softly. The horse's ears flattened against his skull. A warning. I know, she continued, keeping her voice low. I know you don't want me here. That's fine. I don't particularly want to be here either. Diablo snorted, tossing his head. But here we are, both of us stuck in this place, both of us angry about it. Difference is, I'm going to try to get free. Question is whether you want the same thing. The horse stared at her. She couldn't read the expression, didn't know if horses even had expressions in the way humans understood them. But something in that gaze felt familiar. The same trapped fury she saw in the mirror every morning. Behind her, Martinez cleared his throat. You done talking to the animal that's going to kill you? For tonight, May said. They walked back in silence. Halfway to the bunkhouse, Martinez spoke again. You really think you can do this? Tame him? I don't know anything about horses, May admitted. Don't know about taming or breaking or whatever you call it, but I know what it's like to be cornered, to have everyone expect you to fail because that's easier for them than seeing you succeed. This ain't about proving people wrong, girl. This is about not dying. Maybe it's both. Martinez grunted. You're either brave or stupid. Haven't figured which yet. Could be both of those too, May said. What? She couldn't sleep. The bunkhouse was full of sounds. Men snoring, someone grinding their teeth, the building itself creaking like a ship in a storm. But it wasn't the noise keeping her awake. It was the weight of what she'd agreed to. $3,000, 5 years, or one impossible horse. And May stared at the ceiling, at the water stains that formed shapes in the darkness. Her father's face appeared in them, the way it always did when she was alone. He died when she was 14, left her nothing but debt and apologies. Her mother had been gone longer, just a fading memory and a photograph in a drawer somewhere. She'd survived foster care, survived aging out of the system, survived 2 years on her own in a city that didn't care if she lived or died. And now this. A horse that had defeated 32 men. Somewhere in the darkness, Gable's voice cut through the quiet. You awake, China girl? And May didn't respond. I know you are. Listen, you seem smart enough, so let me save you some pain. That horse? He's not tameable. We've all tried. Men twice your size, with 10 times your experience. You're going to get hurt, badly. And when you do, nobody here's going to feel sorry for you because we all warned you. Still, she said nothing. You listening? I heard you, and May said. Then you're going to quit? No, Gable laughed, low and mean. Your funeral. Just don't expect sympathy when Diablo breaks you in half. I don't expect anything from you, May said. Not sympathy, not advice, not conversation. So how about you shut up and let me sleep? Silence. Then, from another bunk, someone chuckled. She got you there, Gable. Screw all of you, Gable muttered. And May rolled over, facing the wall. Tomorrow, she'd start. Tomorrow, she'd walk into that corral and face something everyone said was impossible. But tonight, she'd let herself be scared. Just for a few hours, alone in the dark, she'd admit that maybe, probably, they were right. Maybe she couldn't do this. Maybe she'd fail like everyone else. Maybe this was just another way the world had of crushing her down. But maybe not. And that small maybe, that tiny possibility of freedom, was enough to keep her eyes open until dawn crept through the cracks in the walls. First light came cold and gray, and May was already up, already dressed in borrowed work clothes that didn't quite fit. Jeans too long, shirt too big, boots that pinched her toes. Martinez found her by the corral, watching Diablo pace in the early morning shadows. "You still serious about this?" he asked, holding out a cup of coffee. She took it, grateful for the warmth. "Yes." "Then we need to talk basics. You said you don't know horses?" "Not really," Martinez sighed. "All right, quick education. Horses are prey animals. That means they're wired to run, not fight. When they do fight, it's because they're cornered, scared, or protecting something. Diablo," he gestured toward the corral. "Diablo's been cornered 1,000 times, so now he fights first. How do I change that?" "You don't. Not directly. You can't outmuscle a horse, can't outstubborn one. What you can do is show him you're not a threat. Make yourself boring, predictable, safe." "By doing what?" "By being patient." Martinez handed her a bucket. "Start with this. Every morning you bring him water, fresh water, same time, same way. You set it inside the fence, you step back, you leave. Don't try to touch him, don't try to talk to him if he's agitated. Just bring water and go." "That's it?" "For the first week? Yeah, that's it." And May looked at the bucket, then at the horse. "Everyone else tried to ride him immediately?" "More or less. Owen's method was to rope him, force him into the chute, get a saddle on by any means necessary. Other guys tried gentler approaches, but still with the goal of getting on his back within a few days. Nobody had the patience to just wait." "Did anyone ask what the horse wanted?" Martinez blinked. "What?" "Did anyone ask what the horse wanted? What would make him feel safe?" "He's a horse, girl. You can't ask." "You can watch," Aunt May interrupted. "You can listen. Animals tell you what they need if you pay attention." Martinez studied her for a long moment. "Where'd you learn that?" "Nowhere. I just know what it's like to have people try to break you without bothering to understand you first." The old man's expression softened. "All right, try it your way, but—" He pointed at her. "You stay outside that fence until I say otherwise. You hear me? I'm not pulling your trampled body out of there because you got impatient." "Deal." She took the bucket to the pump, filled it with cold water, carried it to Diablo's corral. The horse was at the far end, watching her with that same calculating gaze. And May opened the gate slowly, stepped inside just far enough to set the bucket down, then retreated and closed the gate behind her. Diablo didn't move. She waited for a moment, then walked away. Behind her, she could hear the other ranch hands gathering for morning work. Their voices carried across the yard, jokes, complaints, the usual banter of men starting another hard day. She caught fragments of conversation. Actually doing it, give her 3 days before she quits. Never seen Owen waste time on something this stupid. And May ignored them. She had work to do. The pattern established itself quickly. Every morning, water. Every evening, hay. And May would enter the corral, set down what she'd brought, and leave immediately. For 3 days, Diablo ignored everything she delivered. The water sat untouched until it grew warm and stale. The hay lay in scattered piles, trampled but not eaten. On the 4th day, she arrived to find the water bucket empty. It was a small thing, meaningless to anyone else, but to Aunt May, it felt like a door opening. That evening, she stayed a little longer after delivering the hay, not close to the horse, still keeping a respectful distance, but not running away either. She sat on the fence rail and just existed, quiet, still. Diablo watched her from across the corral. After 20 minutes, he took a step closer. And May didn't react, didn't move, didn't speak, just breathed and watched the sunset paint the desert in shades of rust and gold. The horse took another step, then another. He stopped about 15 feet away, close enough that she could see the scars on his hide in detail now, long marks from whips, rough patches where rope had worn away the hair, a peculiar dent in his left shoulder that looked like someone had hit him with something heavy and metal. Her stomach turned. What kind of person did that to an animal? But she kept her face neutral, her body relaxed. This wasn't about her anger. This was about his. Diablo snorted, tossed his head. Testing. Waiting for her to react, to make a sudden move, to prove she was like all the others. And May stayed perfectly still. After what felt like an hour but was probably 10 minutes, the horse turned and walked away. Progress. "You're wasting your time," Gable said that night over dinner. And May didn't look up from her plate. Maybe. No, maybe about it. That horse is never going to trust a human. Too much damage. "Then I'll fail," she said. "But at least I'll have tried." "Why bother? Just work off the debt normal. 5 years goes faster than you think." Now she did look up. Gable was watching her with something that wasn't quite hostility but wasn't friendship either. Calculation, maybe. Like he was trying to figure out what game she was playing. 5 years is 5 years, and May said. "I'd rather take the chance at freedom now." "Freedom," Gable laughed. "Girl, you're never going to be free. World doesn't work that way for people like us." "People like us?" "People at the bottom. People who start with nothing. You think taming some horse changes that? Even if you do it, which you won't, you're still going to be nobody from nowhere with no money and no future. At least here you got a roof and regular meals." "And a debt I didn't create," and May said quietly. "Hanging over my head. Owned by a man I don't know. Working land that isn't mine. You call that security, I call it a cage." Gable's expression darkened. "You got a real attitude problem, you know that?" "So I've been told." He stood up, and for a moment May thought he might actually do something stupid, but Martinez cleared his throat from across the room, and Gable thought better of it. "Watch yourself," Gable muttered, and walked out. Martinez came over, refilled her coffee cup. "You're making enemies." "I'm making them by existing," May said. "Might as well say what I think while I'm at it." "Fair point." The old man sat down across from her. "How's it going with the horse?" "He drank the water today." Martinez's eyebrows rose. "That's something, more than most people got." "It's barely anything." "Out here? Trust starts with barely anything. The fact he's willing to take what you offer, that's the first step." And May nodded slowly. "Martinez? Can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "Why do you work here? You seem like—" She searched for the right words. "You seem like you could do better." He smiled, but it was sad around the edges. "Could, maybe, but I'm 62 years old, got arthritis in both hands, and no savings to speak of. Where else am I going to go? At least Owen pays on time and the work's steady." "You ever think about leaving?" "Every day," Martinez said. "But thinking and doing are different things. You're young enough to still believe the doing part's possible. Me, I'm old enough to know better." He stood up, patted her shoulder. "But that horse you're working with? If anyone can reach him, I think it might be you. You got something the rest of us don't." "What's that?" "Nothing to lose." Well, a week became 2. The routine continued. Water, hay, sitting on the fence while Diablo assessed her from various distances. Some days he came closer. Some days he stayed far away. And May learned to read his moods in the way he held his ears, the tension in his muscles, the pattern of his breathing. She also learned the ranch itself, the rhythms of work, the hierarchy of men. Owen was the undisputed boss, though he spent most of his time in his office or in town. Below him was Gable, who'd appointed himself foreman despite no official title. Then came the other hands, 7 men total, all with their own skills and grudges. And at the bottom, May, the outsider, the girl who talked to horses like they were people and thought she could accomplish the impossible. The mockery had mostly faded to indifference, which was fine by her. She didn't need their approval. She needed their absence. But Gable was different. He watched her. Not with the casual curiosity of the other men, but with something sharper, like she was a problem he hadn't solved yet. On the 15th day, he approached her at the corral. "Making progress?" he asked. And May glanced at him, then back at Diablo. The horse was about 10 feet away now, close enough to touch if she reached through the fence. He'd started eating the hay she brought, drinking the water immediately instead of waiting. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. "Some," she said. "Owen's taking bets on when you quit." "What'd he bet?" 3 weeks, Says you'll last exactly 3 weeks, then you'll realize this is stupid and go back to cooking or cleaning or whatever. What'd you bet? Gable smiled. I bet you'd last longer. Figure you're stubborn enough to drag it out. Make everyone waste their time. But you'll fail same as everyone else. Why do you care? And May asked. If I fail, nothing changes for you. If I succeed, maybe Owen's in a better mood. Either way, it's not your problem. It is if you're taking up resources. Time, hay, attention. All for a horse nobody can use. Owen gave me permission. Owen makes stupid decisions when he's bored, Gable said. And you're just another stupid decision. But here's the thing, China girl, when you fail, and you will, he's going to be pissed he wasted his time. And guess who gets to deal with pissed off Owen? You? All of us. So do everyone a favor and quit now. Save us the headache. And May turned to face him fully. No. No? You heard me. I'm not quitting, I'm not failing, and I'm definitely not doing you any favors. She stepped closer, close enough to see the anger flash in his eyes. You want me gone? Then fire me. Tell Owen I'm not worth it, but don't stand here and try to intimidate me into leaving because you're annoyed. For a moment she thought he might hit her. His hands clenched, his jaw tightened, but whatever violence he was considering got buried under calculation. You got a mouth on you, he said quietly. So I've been told. He stared at her for a long moment, then walked away without another word. Behind her, Diablo nickered softly, and May turned back to the horse, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she could swear the animal looked almost amused. You like watching humans fight? She asked. Diablo tossed his head. Yeah, me too. We're ridiculous. Check. That night, Owen summoned her to his office. The room was a disaster. Papers everywhere, empty bottles, a desk so covered in junk she couldn't see the surface. Owen sat behind it all, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair piled with saddle catalogs. And May moved them to the floor and sat. Martinez says you're making progress. A little? Define little. The horse is eating, drinking, coming closer when I'm there, not running away. Owen took another drink. That's more than anyone else got. How long before you can ride him? I don't know. Guess. And May considered lying, giving him a timeline he wanted to hear. But something about Owen's exhausted cynicism made her tell the truth. Months. Maybe longer. He's been hurt badly, repeatedly. That kind of damage doesn't heal fast. I don't have months. Then you don't have a tamed horse. Owen laughed, sharp and bitter. You got balls, I'll give you that. Most people would have told me what I wanted to hear. Most people aren't trying to earn their freedom, May said. True. He set the bottle down, leaned back in his chair until it creaked. You know why I really offered you this deal? You said you were bored. That's part of it. But the real reason? I wanted to see if anyone could do it different. Everyone who's tried to break that horse used force. Ropes, whips, drugs, mechanical restraints, traditional cowboy bullshit, and it all failed. He rubbed his face. You're doing something else, something I don't understand, but it's working, at least a little, and I'm curious enough to let you continue. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm still betting against you. Owen picked up the bottle again. But I'll admit, I'm rooting for you more than I expected. This ranch, he gestured vaguely at the walls. It's dying, slowly, but dying. I can't afford the best hands anymore, can't compete with the bigger operations. That horse was supposed to be my comeback. Breed him, sell his offspring for premium prices, rebuild from there. But a stud nobody can handle is worthless. What happens if I succeed? If you actually tame Diablo, make him rideable? Owen smiled. Then maybe this place has a future, and you walk away free, like I promised. And if I don't? Then you work off your debt like everyone else, and I eventually sell that horse to a glue factory. And May's stomach twisted. You'd kill him? He's no good to me wild. At least dead he's worth something. She wanted to argue, to tell him that was cruel and wasteful, but she could see in Owen's eyes that he'd already made peace with it. This was business. Animals were commodities. Sentiment was a luxury he couldn't afford. I should get back, and May said. One more thing. Owen leaned forward. Gable's been complaining about you. Says you're mouthy, disrespectful. I defend myself when he insults me. If that's disrespectful, then yes, I'm guilty. I don't care about respect, Owen said. I care about results. But Gable's been here 5 years, knows this ranch inside out. You've been here 2 weeks. So here's the deal. You can have your mouth, you can have your attitude, you can tell everyone to screw off if you want. But the second you're more trouble than you're worth, you're gone. Debt or no debt. Understood. Good. Now get out. I've got drinking to do. And May left him there, alone with his whiskey and his failing dreams, and walked back into the night. Above her, stars scattered across the sky like broken glass. The desert was quiet except for the wind and the occasional sound of horses shifting in their sleep. She found her way back to the corral, to Diablo's dark shape against the darker shadows. Hey, she whispered. The horse lifted his head. I'm going to save you, and May said. I don't know how yet, and I don't know if you'll let me, but I'm going to try. Because if I save you, maybe I save myself too. Diablo watched her for a long moment, then walked closer. Closer than he'd ever come before, close enough that she could reach through the fence and touch him if she dared. She didn't. Not yet. But the possibility hung between them like a promise neither could quite believe. 3 weeks turned into 4, and the desert heat became something on May wore like a second skin. Her hands, once soft from restaurant work, developed calluses. Her face darkened under the relentless sun. She learned to move differently out here, slower, more deliberate, conserving energy the way the lizards did when they skittered across the hot rocks. Diablo had stopped retreating when she entered the corral. That was the first real victory. Now, when she brought water in the mornings, he'd watch from whatever corner he'd chosen, ears forward with interest rather than flattened in warning. Sometimes he'd approach while she was still there, drinking from the bucket before she'd even closed the gate behind her. Small things. But small things built trust. On day 28, she sang to him for the first time. It wasn't planned. She'd been sitting on the fence rail, watching the sun climb toward noon, and the melody just came out. An old song her mother used to hum, no words that May remembered, just a tune that felt like cool water and shade. Her voice cracked on the high notes, rusty from disuse, but she kept going. Diablo's ears swiveled toward her. He was grazing on the hay she'd spread earlier, about 20 feet away, but his chewing slowed, then stopped. And May kept singing, keeping her eyes on the horizon rather than staring at him directly. Predators stared. She'd learned that from Martinez. If you wanted an animal to relax, you looked past them, not at them. The horse took a step closer, then another. She continued the song, letting it loop back to the beginning when she ran out of melody. Her heart was hammering, but she forced her breathing to stay even. Her posture relaxed. Diablo moved until he was less than 10 feet away, close enough that she could see the individual scars on his hide, the way his coat caught the light like oil on water. This close, he was massive, easily 17 hands, maybe more. Pure muscle and contained power. He stood there, listening, while May sang the same wordless tune 3 more times. Then he snorted, tossed his head once, and walked away to the far corner of the corral. But it was different than before. Not rejection. More like, enough for now. And May climbed down from the fence, her legs shaking. Martinez was waiting by the barn, a knowing smile on his weathered face. Music, huh? He said. Seemed worth trying. My abuela used to say animals understand feeling more than words. Maybe you're onto something. He handed her a shovel. But you still gotta muck the stalls. Owen's paying you for work, not just singing. Fair enough? They worked in companionable silence for a while. May shoveling manure while Martinez repaired a broken fence rail. The other horses nickered and shifted in their stalls, comfortable with the routine. Normal horses, May thought. Ones that hadn't been broken so badly they forgot how to trust. Can I ask you something? She said after a while. Shoot. The scars on Diablo, you said someone hurt him bad. What do you think happened? Martinez's jaw tightened. Don't know for sure, but I've seen enough abuse in my time to make guesses. The whip marks are obvious. The rope burns too. Someone probably tied him too tight, left him that way for days. That dent in his shoulder? He shook his head. Seen that kind of injury when people use horses as punching bags. Literally. Get drunk, get angry, take it out on whatever can't fight back. And May's stomach turned. And Owen bought him anyway? Owen didn't know. Horse looked fine at a distance. Seller probably sedated him for the transport, kept him calm long enough to make the sale. By the time Diablo woke up here and showed his real temperament, the trader was long gone. Martinez hammered another nail into the fence. Owen tried to track him down, get his money back, but guys like that know how to disappear. So Diablo's been fighting ever since. Can you blame him? Far as he knows, every human's gonna hurt him eventually. Better to strike first. And May leaned on her shovel, looking toward the distant corral where Diablo stood like a dark statue against the pale dirt. How do you teach someone to trust again when everyone's proven they're not worth trusting? That's the question, isn't it? Martinez said. Most people would say you can't. Once trust is broken that badly, it's gone for good. But you don't think so. I think... He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think animals are more forgiving than humans. They live in the present. The past hurts them, sure, but they're not carrying around grudges and stories about why things are the way they are. You give them enough evidence that you're different, they'll consider it. Might take time. Might take more patience than most people have. But it's possible. Is that why you're helping me? Because you think it's possible? Martinez smiled. I'm helping you because I'm a romantic old fool who wants to see if the impossible can happen. Plus, he glanced at her. I like you. You got grit. Don't see that much anymore. Before Aunt May could respond, Gable's voice cut across the yard. Boss wants everyone in the main house. Now! Martinez and Aunt May exchanged glances. Owen rarely called meetings. When he did, it usually meant something had gone wrong. They found the other hands already gathered in Owen's front room, a space that probably looked impressive once, but now just seemed tired. Faded furniture, water-stained ceiling, the smell of old cigars and older regrets. Owen stood by the empty fireplace, arms crossed, face carved from granite. We got a problem, he said without preamble. Jenkins over at the Double R just told me he's expanding, wants to buy my water rights. Silence. Then one of the hands, Tommy, a kid barely 20, spoke up. What'd you tell him? Told him to go to hell, but that's not the point. Point is, he knows we're struggling. Word's getting out that this ranch is on its last legs, and the vultures are circling. We're not that bad off, Gable said, though his voice lacked conviction. We're worse than bad off. We're broke. Owen pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, unfolded it. This is what we owe. Feed suppliers, equipment repairs, back taxes. Added up, we're looking at $30,000 in the hole. Maybe more. Someone whistled low. $30,000 might as well be $3 million out here. So what do? Martinez asked. We work. We cut costs. We sell off anything that's not essential. Owen's eyes found Aunt May in the back of the group. And we pray that damn horse becomes rideable before I have to make real hard choices. All heads turned toward her. Aunt May felt the weight of their stares, the mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. I'm working as fast as I can, she said. Work faster, Owen said, because if Diablo's not producing value by the end of summer, he's getting sold for meat. And if this ranch doesn't turn around... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. The meeting broke up with muttered conversations and worried faces. And May slipped out before anyone could corner her with questions or complaints. She needed air, space, the corral. Diablo was waiting for her, standing near the fence as if he'd known she'd come. And May climbed onto the rail, sat with her legs dangling, and just breathed. They're counting on you, she told the horse. On both of us, really. No pressure or anything? Diablo nickered softly. Yeah, I know. It's stupid. You didn't ask to be anyone's salvation. Neither did I. She ran her hands through her hair, felt the grit and sweat. But here we are. The girl nobody wanted and the horse nobody can ride. Supposed to save a dying ranch. The horse took a step closer, then another. He was right beside the fence now, close enough that Aunt May could smell him. Hay and dust and something wild underneath. She held her breath. Slowly, moving like she was underwater, Aunt May extended her hand through the rails. Palm up, non-threatening, the same way Martinez had taught her to offer treats, though she had nothing to offer now except herself. Diablo's nostrils flared. He leaned forward, stretching his neck until his muzzle was inches from her palm, and May didn't move, didn't breathe. The moment stretched into forever. Then, so lightly she barely felt it, Diablo's nose touched her skin. Contact. Real, deliberate contact. The horse held there for 3 heartbeats, then pulled back and walked away. But the message was clear. He'd chosen to touch her, chosen to trust, even for a second. Anne-May sat on that fence until the sun started setting, her hand still extended, feeling the ghost of that touch like a brand. Progress. The next morning she brought an apple with the water. Martinez had given it to her the night before, told her it might help. And May cut it into pieces, put them in her pocket, and headed to the corral with the bucket. Diablo was already at the fence, waiting. "Morning," Anne-May said. She set down the water, then pulled out an apple slice. "I brought something new today." She held it out through the fence, arm extended. The horse eyed it suspiciously. His ears flicked back and forth, uncertainty rather than aggression. He took a cautious step closer, neck stretched, trying to smell the apple without committing. And May stayed motionless. Her arms started to ache from holding the position, but she didn't lower it. Finally, Diablo closed the distance and took the apple from her palm. His lips were surprisingly gentle, carefully avoiding her skin. He chewed twice, swallowed, then looked at her expectantly. She laughed. Actually, laughed. "Oh, so now we're friends because I have food?" Another piece of apple. This time Diablo didn't hesitate, just took it straight from her hand. "You're kind of a con artist, you know that?" And May said, feeding him a third piece. "Acting all dangerous and untamable, but really you just wanted someone to bring you snacks." Diablo snorted, tossing his head. Yeah, I know you're still tough. Very scary. I'm terrified." She gave him the last piece of apple. "But maybe you're also a little bit lonely, and maybe that's okay to admit." The horse finished chewing, then did something unexpected. He pressed his forehead against the fence rail, right where Anne-May was standing, and just stood there. Not aggressive, not demanding, just present. Carefully, moving with the same underwater slowness as yesterday, Anne-May reached through the fence and touched his neck. Just her fingertips at first, barely grazing the coarse hair. Diablo didn't move. She flattened her palm against his coat, felt the warmth of him, the solid reality of muscle and bone and life. Her hand looked impossibly small against his massive frame. "There you are," she whispered. "There you are." They stood like that for 10 minutes, maybe 15. And May's arm went numb, but she didn't care. This was what months of work had been building toward. Not dominance, not breaking, just connection. Finally, Diablo pulled away and walked to the water bucket. He drank deeply while Anne-May climbed down from the fence, her legs shaking. Martinez was there again, grinning like sunrise. "You touched him." "I touched him," Anne-May confirmed, still not quite believing it. That's more than anyone's accomplished in 2 years. You know that?" "It's just a touch." "Just a touch," Martinez repeated, shaking his head. "You really don't get it, do you? That horse has been untouchable. Literally. Nobody's laid hands on him without ropes and restraint since he got here. And he gestured helplessly. "You just asked nicely, and he said yes." And May looked back at the corral. Diablo was grazing now, calm and relaxed, like touching a human was the most normal thing in the world. "What do I do next?" she asked. "You keep doing what you're doing. Build on it, but slow, always slow. The second you push too hard, you'll lose everything you've gained." "How do I know where the line is?" "You watch him. He'll tell you." Over the next week, the touches became routine. And May would bring water and apples, and Diablo would come to the fence to greet her. She'd stroke his neck, his shoulder, eventually working her way down his legs. Each new area required negotiation. She'd touch briefly, pull away, let him process, then try again. Some spots he accepted immediately. Others, like his hindquarters where the worst scars were, made him skittish. But he never bit, never kicked. Just communicated his boundaries through body language, and Anne-May learned to read him the way you'd read a book. The other ranch hands started watching with something that wasn't quite respect but wasn't mockery either. Fascination, maybe. Like she was performing magic tricks instead of just being patient. Gable watched too, but his expression was harder to read. Not quite hostile anymore, but not friendly. Calculating. Like he was waiting for something. On the 43rd day, May decided to enter the corral properly. Not just reaching through the fence, but actually standing in the same space as Diablo, no barrier between them. Martinez nearly had a heart attack when she told him. "You're not ready," he said flatly. "I've been touching him for 2 weeks. He knows me." Through a fence. That's different than being in there with him. He could spook, could kick, could... I know the risks. Do you? Martinez grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly. That horse weighs 1,200 pounds. One good kick breaks bones. One bite can tear through muscle. And if he decides to run you down... He didn't finish. And May understood. She'd be dead before she hit the ground. "I have to do this eventually," she said. "Owen's running out of time. The ranch is running out of time. I can't tame a horse from outside the fence forever. Give it another week, 2 weeks. Let him get even more comfortable. Or let fear talk me out of it until I've waited so long the moment's gone." And May pulled her arm free gently. "I'm doing this. But I'd like you there, in case something goes wrong." Martinez closed his eyes, fighting some internal battle. Finally, "You're as stubborn as that damn horse. Is that a yes?" "It's a don't make me regret this." They went to the corral together. Martinez carried a rope just in case, though May wasn't sure what he planned to do with it if Diablo decided to attack. Lasso a charging stallion? That seemed optimistic. Diablo was at the far end, grazing. He looked up when they approached, ears forward, and May took a deep breath, opened the gate, and stepped inside. The world shifted. Suddenly the corral felt smaller, more intimate. Just her and this massive animal who destroyed 32 men. The fence wasn't protection anymore. It was a cage, and she'd just locked herself in. Diablo watched her. Didn't approach, didn't retreat, just watched. "Hey," and May said softly. She'd left the apples outside deliberately. This wasn't about bribing him. This was about trust. She took a step forward, slow, deliberate. Diablo's ears flicked back slightly, uncertain, and May stopped. "I'm not going to hurt you. You know that by now, right?" Another step. The horse shifted his weight but held his ground. "We've been doing this dance for weeks now," May continued, keeping her voice low and steady. "You've let me touch you, feed you, sing to you. All I'm doing now is standing in the same dirt. That's all." She was 15 feet away now, close enough to see the intelligence in Diablo's eyes, the way he was evaluating her every movement. "You could kill me," May said. "I know you know that. I'm small and slow and made of breakable things, but you're not going to because you're not a killer. You're just tired of being hurt." 10 feet. Diablo's muscles tensed. Not aggression, May thought, just readiness. He was giving her a chance to prove herself or prove him right about humans. "I know what it's like," she said, "to be trapped, to have everyone expect you to fail because it's easier than believing you might succeed, to carry damage that feels like it's never going to heal." She took another step. "But I'm still here, and so are you. We're both still fighting." 5 feet. 5. The horse snorted, tossed his head. His tail swished. Flies. Or nervousness. May couldn't tell. "I'm going to touch you now," she said. "Same way I have before, just without the fence between us." She extended her hand, palm out. The same gesture she'd made 100 times through the rails. Diablo stared at her hand, then at her face. The moment stretched impossibly long. Then he lowered his head and stepped forward, closing the distance himself. His nose touched her palm. Warm breath. Soft skin. The same gentle contact as before, but everything about it felt different, more real, more vulnerable. And May moved her hand to his neck, stroking the way she'd learned he liked. Diablo leaned into the touch, eyes half closing. Behind her, Martinez let out a breath he'd probably been holding since she entered the corral. "Good boy," May whispered. "You're such a good boy." She stayed with him for 20 minutes, just touching and talking and existing together in that shared space. When she finally left the corral, her legs were shaking so badly she could barely walk. Martinez caught her when she stumbled. "You did it," he said, and his voice was thick with something that might have been pride. You actually did it. That was the easy part, and May said. Now I have to figure out how to get on his back. But that night, sitting in the bunkhouse while the other hands played cards and told lies, May allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next morning brought rain. Not the gentle kind, but the violent desert storm that turned dust to mud and made the whole world smell like rust. And May stood under the bunkhouse overhang, watching water sheet off the roof. Diablo was standing in the middle of his corral, head down against the weather, looking miserable. Horses don't like rain much, Martinez said, appearing beside her with 2 cups of coffee. Makes them nervous. All that noise, can't see as well, ground gets slippery. And May took the coffee gratefully. Should I still go out there? That's up to you. But if you do, if you go to him when he's uncomfortable and scared, that'll mean something. Animals remember who shows up when things are hard. She drank half the coffee in 3 gulps, handed the cup back, and walked into the rain. The mud sucked at her boots with every step. By the time she reached the corral, she was soaked through, hair plastered to her skull, clothes heavy with water. She looked, she was sure, like a drowned rat. Diablo watched her approach, ears swiveling to track her through the rain, and May opened the gate and stepped inside. No apples today, no song, just presents. The horse didn't move. She walked toward him slowly, mud squelching, rain hammering down so hard it hurt where it hit her shoulders. When she reached Diablo, she pressed herself against his side, using his bulk as shelter from the worst of the storm. This weather sucks, she said. Diablo snorted in what might have been agreement. They stood like that, girl and horse, sharing warmth and misery, while the rain tried to wash them both away. And May's teeth chattered. Her fingers went numb, but she didn't leave. After an hour, the storm broke. Sunlight crept through the clouds in golden shafts, turning the wet ranch into something almost beautiful. Steam rose from the mud. Birds emerged, shaking water from their feathers. And May stepped back from Diablo, and what she saw stopped her cold. The horse was looking at her differently, not with calculation or uncertainty, with something that looked almost like recognition, understanding. She'd shown up when things were hard. She'd stayed when leaving would have been smarter. And he'd noticed. We're going to be okay, May said. Both of us. Somehow. Diablo pressed his forehead against her shoulder, a gesture of trust so profound it made her eyes burn. She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on, mud-soaked and exhausted and more certain than she'd ever been about anything. This was going to work. Over the following days, May started introducing new elements. A rope, first, just draped over Diablo's back while she stood beside him, letting him get used to the weight and feel. He spooked the first time, dancing sideways, but didn't run. The second time, he tolerated it. The third time, he barely reacted. Then a blanket. Same process. Slow introduction, plenty of breaks, always watching for signs of stress. Martinez helped, offering advice and occasionally playing the role of second set of eyes. You're doing what everyone should have done from the start, he said one afternoon, treating him like a partner instead of a problem to solve. Seems obvious when you say it like that. Obvious things aren't always easy, especially for men who think everything's about dominance. He glanced toward the barn where Gable was working. Speaking of which, watch yourself around that one. He's been asking questions. What kind of questions? About your methods? About how long Owen's giving you? About what happens if you succeed? Martinez's expression darkened. I don't trust his interest. You think he'd sabotage this? I think he's the kind of man who doesn't like being shown up by a girl half his size. And I think pride makes people stupid. And May filed that warning away. But mostly, she focused on Diablo. On day 56, she introduced the saddle. The horse eyed it like a snake, nostrils flaring. And May didn't blame him. She'd seen how they'd tried to saddle him before. Ropes and force and men holding him down while he screamed and fought. This is different, she told him. I'm asking, not telling. And if you say no, we'll try again tomorrow. She set the saddle on the fence rail where he could see it and smell it. Let him investigate on his own terms. Diablo circled it warily, then approached and sniffed, touched it with his nose. Seemed satisfied it wasn't actively dangerous. Good. Now comes the hard part. And May picked up the saddle, lighter than she expected but still awkward, and carried it into the corral. Diablo tensed but didn't bolt. She walked to his side, moving slow enough that he could track every motion. "I'm going to put this on your back," she said. "Just for a minute, just to see how it feels, okay?" She lifted the saddle, muscles straining, and settled it gently onto Diablo's back. The horse exploded. Not violently, but with all the pent-up fear of every bad memory that saddle represented. He jumped sideways, bucking once, sending the saddle flying into the mud. And May scrambled back, giving him space. Diablo ran to the far corner, wild-eyed and breathing hard. "Okay," May said, keeping her voice calm even though her heart was trying to punch through her ribs. "Okay. That was too much too fast. My fault." She left the saddle where it fell and walked toward Diablo slowly, hands visible, posture non-threatening. "I'm sorry," she said. "I pushed too hard. Won't happen again." The horse watched her approach, still tense, still ready to run. And May stopped 10 feet away and sat down in the mud. Just sat, cross-legged, looking at nothing in particular. Minutes passed. The sun climbed higher, and May's clothes dried stiff with mud. Finally, Diablo approached. He came close enough to smell her hair, her hands, making sure she was still the same person who'd shown up in the rain, who'd sung to him, who'd never once forced him to do anything. "I'm still me," May said quietly. "Still the one who's trying to help. But I screwed up. And I'm sorry." Diablo lowered his head and exhaled against her neck. Forgiveness, in his own language. And May reached up and scratched behind his ears. The spot she'd learned made him relax. "Tomorrow," she said. "We'll try again tomorrow, slower this time." But tomorrow brought a different problem. And May woke to shouting. Not the usual morning banter of ranch hands, but real anger. She pulled on her boots and stumbled outside to find Owen's face red with fury, Gable standing in front of him with crossed arms. "Don't care what you think is fair," Owen was saying. "I make the decisions on this ranch." "And your decisions are running us into the ground," Gable shot back. "We're wasting time and resources on that girl and her pet project while real work doesn't get done." "The real work is getting done just fine." "No, it's not. The south fence is falling apart. Half the horses need new shoes. We're behind on everything because you're obsessed with that damn black devil." "I'm obsessed with finding a way to save this ranch," Owen said. "Something you don't seem to understand." "What I understand is you're putting all our futures on the back of an 18-year-old girl who's never ridden a horse in her life. That's not strategy. That's desperation." And May stepped forward before she could think better of it. "I'm standing right here." Both men turned to look at her. Gable's expression was contempt wrapped in satisfaction. He'd wanted her to hear this. "How's the taming going, China girl?" he asked. "Horse rideable yet?" "Not yet." "Not yet? Not yet!" Gable laughed. "It's been 2 months. 2 months of watching you play with that animal like he's a pet dog. Meanwhile, Owen's bleeding money on feed and supplies for a horse nobody can use." "I'm making progress." "Progress doesn't pay bills," Gable interrupted. "Results do, and you got no results. Just a horse that maybe lets you pet him if you bring enough apples." "Gable, that's enough," Owen said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Gable turned back to Owen. "Because I'm about to tell you something you need to hear. That horse is never going to be rideable. Not by her, not by anyone. He's too damaged, too mean, too far gone. Best thing you can do is sell him now. Take whatever you can get and focus on the animals that actually work." "I made a deal with her," Owen said. "A stupid deal. My deal. My ranch. My decision." The two men stared at each other, and May could see years of tension crystallizing into something sharper. This wasn't just about her or Diablo. This was about power and pride and everything that came from broken people trying to prove they weren't. "Fine," Gable said finally. "It's your ranch. For now. But when it fails, and it will, don't come crying to me about opportunities you missed." He stalked off toward the barn, leaving May and Owen standing in the morning dust. "He's not wrong about everything," Owen said quietly. "We are running out of time." "I know. Can you do this?" "Really?" And May thought about Diablo's reaction to the saddle yesterday. The fear. The memory of pain. I don't know, she admitted, but I'm trying. Try faster, Owen said, and walked away. And May stood alone in the yard, feeling the weight of everyone's expectations pressing down like the desert sun. Martinez found her there 20 minutes later, still frozen. Don't listen to Gable, he said. What if he's right? About the horse? He's not. I've seen the progress you're making. Progress isn't results, May said, echoing Gable's words. And results are what matter. Results matter, Martinez agreed. But so does the journey. What you're doing with Diablo, it's changing him, healing him. That has value even if you never ride him. Not to Owen, not to this ranch. Martinez didn't argue. They both knew she was right. That afternoon, May tried the saddle again. This time she spent an hour just letting Diablo sniff it, investigate it, understand it wasn't a threat. Then she draped it over his back without fastening it, let him feel the weight, removed it immediately. Did it again and again. By the 10th repetition, Diablo was barely reacting. The saddle was becoming normal, boring even. Good boy, May murmured. Such a good, brave boy. She was fastening the girth, slowly, carefully, when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Gable leaning against the fence, watching. Impressive, he said, and he almost sounded sincere. Didn't think you'd get that far. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. Wearing a saddle's different than being ridden. I know. Gable picked up a stone, turned it over in his hands. You really think you can do this? Tame him completely? I have to. Why? Because Owen promised to clear your debt? He laughed. Girl, even if you succeed, you think he's actually going to let you go? You'll be too valuable. He'll find another reason to keep you here. And May's stomach tightened. She hadn't thought of that. Just something to consider, Gable said. He tossed the stone aside. This ranch eats people, uses them up and spits them out. Don't fool yourself into thinking you're special. He walked away before she could respond. And May looked at Diablo, who was standing calm and patient with the saddle on his back. They'd come so far. But what if Gable was right? What if freedom was just another lie? She pushed the thought away, one problem at a time. That evening, she stayed late with Diablo, practicing with the saddle until it was as natural as the blanket had been. The horse seemed to understand they were building towards something, and he was choosing, every day, to trust her a little more. As the sun set and the desert turned gold and purple, May rested her forehead against Diablo's neck. We're going to make it, she whispered. Both of us. Whatever comes next. The horse stood quiet in the dying light, and for a moment, just a moment, May let herself believe it might actually be true. The saddle stayed on for 3 full days before May attempted anything more. She walked Diablo around the corral with it fastened, let him graze with the weight on his back, even left it on while he rolled in the dust, watching him figure out how to move with this new thing strapped to him. Each time, the horse adjusted a little more, until the saddle became just another part of his existence. On the 4th day, she brought a bridle. Martinez saw her carrying it and shook his head. You're pushing again. He's ready. You said that about the saddle and he bucked you halfway to Nevada. And then he forgave me. We learned from it. And May held up the bridle, examining the leather straps and metal bit. This is different anyway. The bit goes in his mouth. If he hates it, he can spit it out. Nobody's forcing anything. Famous last words, Martinez muttered, but he followed her to the corral anyway. Diablo was waiting at the fence, ears forward with interest. Over the past weeks, their morning routine had become something he anticipated rather than endured. And May set down her bucket of water and the bag of apple slices, then showed him the bridle. The horse sniffed it suspiciously. His ears flicked back when he caught the scent of the metal bit. I know, May said. It's weird, but it's how this works. The bit sits in your mouth, right here. She touched the corner of his lips gently. And I use it to communicate, to ask you to turn or stop or slow down. It doesn't hurt if nobody's yanking on it. Diablo snorted and tossed his head, clearly skeptical. And May spent the next hour just holding the bridle near his face, letting him investigate it, occasionally touching the bit to his lips without trying to insert it. By the time the sun reached its peak, Diablo was comfortable enough to mouth the metal, testing it with his tongue. "Good," May murmured. "That's exactly right. Just checking it out, seeing what it's about." She slipped the bit into his mouth during one of these explorations, moving quickly but gently. Diablo's eyes widened and he tried to spit it out immediately, tossing his head. And May held the bridle steady but didn't force it. I know. It feels strange, but give it a minute." The horse fought for maybe 30 seconds, working his jaw, trying to dislodge the foreign object. Then, gradually, he settled. His tongue moved around the bit, exploring it, and his breathing evened out. "There you go," May said. "See? Not so bad." She left the bridle on for 10 minutes that first time, just letting Diablo stand with it while she stroked his neck and talked nonsense. When she removed it, the horse shook his head vigorously, clearly glad to be rid of it, but he didn't seem traumatized. Progress. Over the next week, the bridle became as routine as the saddle. May would put it on, leave it for increasingly longer periods, sometimes leading Diablo around the corral with gentle pressure on the reins. The horse learned that when she pulled left, she wanted him to turn left. Pull right, turn right. A light pull back meant stop. He was learning the language of riding without anyone on his back. "You're smarter than you let on," May told him one afternoon. They were standing in the shade of the barn, both of them sweating in the brutal heat. Acting all wild and mean when really you just needed someone to explain what they wanted instead of demanding it. Diablo lipped at her hair, searching for treats. Yeah, I got apples, but you gotta earn them now." She led him in a circle using just the reins, and when he followed perfectly, she rewarded him with fruit. "See how this works? You do the thing, you get the good stuff. Revolutionary concept." Behind her, someone cleared their throat, and May turned to find Owen standing there, arms crossed, watching with an expression she couldn't quite read. "How long until you can ride him?" he asked without preamble, and May's stomach tightened. "I don't know. Few more weeks, maybe?" "You said that last month." "Because it's true. I can't rush this, Owen. One wrong move and I lose everything we've built." "One more month of feed bills and I lose the ranch," Owen said. His voice was flat, exhausted. "Jenkins made another offer this morning. Wants to buy the whole property, not just the water rights. $50,000. That's less than it's worth, I know, but it's cash and it's on the table." Owen pulled out a cigarette, lit it with shaking hands. "I got creditors calling every day, feed stores threatening to cut me off, banks talking foreclosure. I'm drowning here, girl." And May looked at Diablo, then back at Owen. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need to make a decision soon. Either this horse becomes valuable enough to justify the investment, or I take Jenkins's offer and we all move on." "And what happens to Diablo if you sell?" Owen's silence was answer enough. New owners wouldn't want an unrideable horse. They'd sell him for meat, maybe use him for dog food. All that pain and fear and slow-built trust would end in a slaughterhouse. 2 weeks, May said. "Give me 2 more weeks. I'll have him rideable by then. Can you guarantee that?" "No, but I can guarantee I'll try." Owen studied her for a long moment, then nodded. 2 weeks. "And May? If you can't do it?" He paused. "If you can't do it, it's not your fault. This was always a long shot. You did better than anyone expected." He walked away before she could respond, leaving her alone with the horse and a deadline that felt like a noose tightening. That night, May barely slept. She lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling, running through everything she knew about horses, about trust, about the specific scars that marked Diablo's body and psyche. 2 weeks. 14 days to accomplish what 32 men over 2 years couldn't do. The impossibility of it sat on her chest like a stone. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and walked out to the corral. The desert was silver under a half moon, everything reduced to shades of gray. Diablo was lying down in the dirt, unusual for a horse, his sides rising and falling with deep breaths. And May climbed into the corral and sat beside him, not touching, just present. After a few minutes, the horse lifted his head and looked at her. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. Diablo's ears flicked forward. We got 2 weeks to figure this out, and May said. 2 weeks before Owen sells this place, and you end up somewhere worse. Somewhere where nobody's going to care that you're scared or hurt or just trying to survive.
Bani.
She picked up a handful of dirt, let it sift through her fingers. I know you don't understand English, but maybe you understand the important part. We're out of time. The horse watched her with those intelligent eyes, and May could swear he understood more than anyone gave him credit for. Tomorrow, she said, tomorrow I'm going to try to ride you. Not because I'm ready, and probably not because you're ready either, but because we don't have the luxury of waiting anymore. She reached out slowly and touched his neck. I need you to trust me, just for a few minutes, just long enough to prove to Owen that this wasn't a waste. Diablo didn't pull away. He leaned into her touch, and May felt something crack open in her chest. This animal, who'd been hurt so badly he'd stopped trusting anything, was choosing to believe in her. She couldn't let him down. The next morning came too fast and too bright, and May was at the corral before sunrise, saddle and bridle in hand, trying to calm the riot of nerves in her stomach. Martinez appeared with coffee and concern. You're really doing this today? Have to. Have to and should are different things. Then I should have to, May said. She took the coffee, drank it too fast, burned her tongue. Owen gave me 2 weeks. That's not enough time to wait for the perfect moment. I need to start trying now. And if he throws you? Then I get back on, or I don't, and we figure out plan B. She handed back the empty cup. But I'm done being careful. Careful is slow, and slow is going to get us all destroyed. She entered the corral and started the familiar routine. Water, apples, gentle touches. Diablo seemed to sense something was different. He was more alert, ears constantly moving, tracking her every motion. And May saddled him without incident, bridle too. The horse stood patient while she adjusted straps and checked the fit of everything. So far, so normal. Then she led him to the fence and climbed onto the second rail. From there, she could lean over his back, draping herself across the saddle without actually mounting. Just testing, seeing how he'd react to weight from above. Diablo tensed but didn't move. His breathing quickened. Good boy, May said. You're okay. I'm not hurting you, am I? She slid back down and gave him an apple. They repeated the exercise 5 times, her leaning over, him standing still, reward. Building the association, weight from above equals treats, not pain. On the 6th attempt, May swung her leg over. For 1 perfect second, she was sitting in the saddle and Diablo was standing still beneath her. And May felt the power of him, the coiled strength, the sheer size. From up here, the world looked different, bigger. Then Diablo remembered what saddles meant, what riders meant. He didn't buck like a rodeo horse. He just left. One moment he was standing still, the next he was moving at a dead run toward the far fence. And May grabbed for the saddle horn, her other hand tangled in his mane, holding on through pure instinct. Diablo hit the corner too fast and turned sharp. And May's weight shifted wrong, and suddenly she was airborne, flying through space with nothing but dirt rushing up to meet her. She hit hard. The impact knocked every bit of air from her lungs, and for a terrifying moment she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only lie there stunned while her body tried to remember how to function. Martinez was shouting something, and May heard boots running, hands touching her shoulders, asking if she was okay. She managed a weak nod, still gasping for air. Across the corral, Diablo stood against the fence, sides heaving, eyes showing white. Not triumph, fear. The same fear that had driven him for 2 years. And May struggled to her feet, waving off Martinez's attempts to help. Everything hurt, her back, her hip, her pride, but nothing felt broken. That's enough for today, Martinez said firmly. You proved you could get on. That's progress. I proved I could get thrown, May corrected. She limped toward Diablo, moving slow so he could see she wasn't angry. Don't, Martinez warned. Give him space. Give yourself space. But May kept walking. Diablo watched her approach, still breathing hard, still pressed against the fence like he wanted to disappear through it. When she got close enough to touch, May stopped. Hey, she said softly. That was scary, wasn't it? For both of us. The horse's ears flicked toward her voice. I'm not mad, May continued. You got scared and you ran. That's what prey animals do. I get it. She extended her hand slowly. But we're going to have to try again, tomorrow or the day after, or whenever you're ready. Because I meant what I said last night. We're out of time. Diablo snorted, tossing his head. I know you don't want this, but I promise, I swear to you, I'm never going to hurt you the way those other people did. You're not a thing to be broken. Her voice caught. You're the only friend I've got in this place, and I need you to help me save us both. Slowly, moving with the same underwater caution she'd used months ago, Diablo stretched his neck and touched his nose to her palm. And May felt tears sting her eyes but didn't let them fall. Tomorrow, she said. We'll try again tomorrow. But tomorrow brought disaster of a different kind. And May woke to find the water buckets overturned, hay scattered everywhere, and Diablo pacing the corral in a state of agitation she hadn't seen in weeks. His ears were flat against his skull, his eyes rolling, foam flecking his mouth. Something was wrong, very wrong. Martinez was already there, standing outside the fence with a grim expression. Don't go in, he said when May approached. What happened? Don't know. Found him like this an hour ago. Something's got him spooked bad. And May scanned the corral, looking for anything unusual. That's when she saw it. A dark stain on Diablo's left flank, just behind where the saddle would sit. She squinted. Blood? No, not blood. Darker. Is that... Someone threw something at him, Martinez said. Rock, bottle, can't tell, but whatever it was, it hit hard enough to break skin. And it was recent, probably last night or early this morning. Ice flooded May's veins. Who would... She didn't finish the question. She already knew. Gable was by the barn, watching them with his arms crossed and that same calculating expression he always wore. When May's eyes met his, he didn't look away. Didn't even have the decency to pretend innocence. You, May said, walking toward him. Martinez called after her, but she ignored him. You did this. Did what? Gable asked, voice flat. Don't play stupid. You hurt him. I haven't been near that corral. Liar. And May stopped in front of him, fists clenched. She was a foot shorter and 70 pounds lighter, but rage made her feel huge. You sabotaged this because you can't stand that I'm succeeding where you failed. Gable's jaw tightened. You're not succeeding. You're wasting time on a horse that's already broken. And yeah, maybe I helped remind him what happens when people get too close. Call it a public service. You call terrorizing an animal a public service? I call it reality. That horse is dangerous. Always has been. Always will be. You getting him to eat apples doesn't change what he is. Gable leaned down, getting in her face. And you know what? When he throws you again, and he will, maybe it'll knock some sense into that thick skull of yours. And May's hand moved before she could think, connecting with Gable's face in a slap that echoed across the yard. Not hard enough to really hurt him, but hard enough to make a point. The ranch went silent. Every hand within earshot stopped working to watch. Gable's expression went from surprise to cold fury. He straightened to his full height, and for a moment May thought he might actually hit her back, but Owen's voice cut through the tension. What the hell is going on here? Everyone turned. Owen stood in the doorway of his office, shirt half-buttoned, eyes bloodshot from another late night with the whiskey bottle. She hit me, Gable said, pointing at May. Because he sabotaged Diablo, May shot back. Go look at the horse. Someone threw something at him, scared him half to death, undid weeks of progress. And Gable just admitted it. Owen's gaze swung to Gable. That true? I didn't admit anything. She's making assumptions. The horse has a wound on his flank, Martinez said, walking over. Fresh. And someone definitely got into that corral last night. Could have been anyone, Gable said. Could have been her trying to make me look bad. Why would I destroy my own work? May demanded. Because you're failing and you need an excuse, Gable said. Easier to blame sabotage than admit you can't do what you promised. Owen held up a hand. Everyone shut up. He walked to the corral and examined Diablo from outside the fence. The horse was still agitated, pacing and snorting. When Owen turned back, his face was hard. Gable, you're fired. Silence. Then Gable laughed, sharp and disbelieving. What? You heard me. Pack your things and get off my property. You're firing me over a horse? Over her? Gable pointed at May. I've worked here for 5 years. 5 years of keeping this place running while you drank yourself stupid. And you're choosing some Chinese girl who showed up 2 months ago? I'm choosing not to employ someone who hurts animals out of spite, Owen said. Now get out before I help you leave. For a moment, May thought Gable might actually fight. His hands clenched, his shoulders squared. But whatever calculation ran through his head, it ended with retreat. Fine, Gable said. Fire me. But when this place falls apart, and it will, don't come crying that you should have listened. He stalked toward the bunkhouse to collect his things. The other ranch hands scattered, suddenly very interested in work that needed doing elsewhere. Nobody wanted to be associated with the losing side. Owen turned to May. Can you fix this? The damage to the horse? May looked at Diablo, still pacing, still frightened. All the trust they'd built, all the careful progress, cracked by one act of cruelty. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm going to try. Owen nodded. 2 weeks is still 2 weeks. Clock's still ticking. He walked away, leaving May alone with the wreckage of everything she'd worked for. The rest of that day was brutal. May tried approaching Diablo a dozen times, but the horse wouldn't let her near. He'd retreat to the far corner, ears flat, the same wild look in his eyes that he'd had the first day she arrived. They were back to square one. Maybe worse than square one, because now Diablo had been reminded that humans couldn't be trusted, that even when things seemed safe, pain could come from nowhere. Martinez brought her lunch, but May couldn't eat. She sat on the fence rail, watching Diablo, trying to figure out how to undo the damage. Talk to him, Martinez suggested. That worked before. He's not listening. Then sing. That worked too. May shook her head. I don't think... You got a better idea? She didn't. So she started humming, soft and low, the same wordless melody her mother used to sing. It felt stupid at first, singing to a horse that was clearly terrified and wanted nothing to do with her, but she kept going because she didn't know what else to do. After 10 minutes, Diablo's ears swiveled toward the sound. After 20, his pacing slowed. After 30, he stopped entirely and just stood there, listening. May kept singing. Her throat got dry, her voice cracked, but she pushed through. Song after song, melody after melody, anything she could remember or make up on the spot. The sun tracked across the sky. Shadows lengthened. Other ranch hands finished their work and headed in for dinner, shooting curious glances at the girl still singing to the traumatized horse. As the light turned golden, Diablo took a step toward her. Just one step, but it was movement in the right direction. May's voice nearly broke with relief, but she forced herself to keep singing. Another step. Another. Slow as erosion, Diablo crossed the corral. When he was close enough to touch, May stopped singing and just sat there, hands in her lap, trying not to cry. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry someone hurt you again. Diablo lowered his head and pressed his forehead against her knee. The gesture was so gentle, so trusting despite everything, that May did start crying then. Silent tears that dripped onto the horse's dark mane. We're going to be okay, she said, more to convince herself than him. We're going to figure this out. But she had no idea how. That night, May sat in the bunkhouse cleaning tack that didn't need cleaning, just needing something to do with her hands. The other ranch hands gave her space, sensing she was too raw for conversation. Martinez sat down beside her eventually, handing over a plate of food she still didn't want. Eat, he said. Starving yourself doesn't help the horse. May took the plate to be polite, but just pushed the beans around with her fork. Gable's gone, Martinez said. Left about an hour ago. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. Good. But he's not wrong about everything, Martinez continued carefully. This ranch is dying, and Owen's running out of options. 2 weeks might not be enough. It has to be. Why? Because you said so? Martinez's voice was gentle but firm. And May, you've done something incredible with that horse. Things nobody thought possible, but you can't control everything. Sometimes the world doesn't care how hard you try. If I fail, Diablo dies. If you fail, you tried something beautiful and it didn't work out. That's not the same as killing him. And May set down her fork. It feels the same. I know. Martinez squeezed her shoulder. But you can't carry the weight of everything on your own. The ranch's problems aren't your fault. The horse's trauma isn't your fault. Sometimes bad things just happen. Then what's the point of trying? The point is you're trying. The point is Diablo knows he's not alone. That matters, even if it doesn't save the ranch. Martinez stood up. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day to figure things out. But May didn't sleep. She lay in her bunk running through scenarios, trying to find a path that ended with her and Diablo both surviving this. Every path led to dead ends, or maybes, or situations that required luck she didn't have. Around 3 a.m, she gave up and went back to the corral. Diablo was standing near the fence, awake and waiting like he'd known she'd come. And May climbed the rails and sat on top, and the horse moved close enough that she could touch his neck. Tomorrow, she said, I'm going to try to ride you again. And I know you're scared. I know what Gable did brought back all the bad memories. But I need you to try to remember the good ones too. The apples and the singing and all the times I showed up even when it was hard. That's who I am. Not the people who hurt you before. Diablo's ears flicked, listening. I can't promise it won't be scary, and May continued. I can't promise I won't mess up or that it won't hurt. But I can promise I'll never stop trying to do right by you. That's all I've got. The horse leaned his head against her leg, and May felt something settle in her chest. Not confidence exactly, but determination. They'd come too far to quit now. Morning came cold and clear, and May was at the corral before sunrise, moving through the familiar routine like a prayer. Water, apples, gentle touches. Diablo was still skittish from yesterday's trauma, but he accepted her presence, accepted the saddle and bridle without fighting. When she led him to the fence and climbed up to mount, his whole body tensed. I know, May said softly. I know this is the scary part, but we've done this before. You know what happens? I get on, you get nervous, we figure it out together. She swung her leg over slowly, settling into the saddle with as little impact as possible. Diablo's breathing quickened, but he didn't bolt, didn't buck, just stood there trembling with the effort of not running. Good boy, May murmured. Such a good, brave boy. You're doing so good. She sat still for a count of 30, letting him adjust to the weight, then gently touched her heels to his sides. Nothing hard, just a suggestion. Let's walk. Diablo took one uncertain step, then another. His ears swiveled constantly, tracking every sound, his muscles coiled and ready to explode into flight. But he didn't run. They made it halfway across the corral before May asked him to stop. She did it with a gentle pull on the reins in her voice, not force. Diablo halted immediately, sides heaving. That's it, May said, sliding off and giving him 3 apples in quick succession. That's all I needed. Just a few steps. You did perfect. The horse lipped the apples from her palm, and May could have sworn he looked almost proud. Martinez was watching from the fence, grinning like sunrise. You rode him. I sat on him while he walked. That's not quite the same thing. It's close enough for now. Martinez climbed into the corral. How'd it feel? Terrifying. He could have thrown me at any second. But he didn't. That's trust, girl. That's what you've been building toward. And May looked at Diablo, who was nosing around for more apples. We still have a long way to go. Sure. But you're on the path now. That's what matters. Over the next 3 days, May rode Diablo in increasingly longer sessions. They never went fast, never pushed beyond what he was comfortable with, just walked circles around the corral while May got used to his rhythm and he got used to her weight. On the 4th day, she asked him to trot. The transition was rough. Diablo's trot was powerful and jarring, nothing like the smooth walk. And May bounced in the saddle, struggling to find her balance, but she managed to stay on for a full lap before asking him to slow down. Progress. Slow, imperfect, but real. Owen watched from his office window sometimes, though he never came down to say anything. And May could feel the weight of his assessment, the calculation of whether this investment was paying off. 10 days left, then 9, then 8. On day 7, May asked Diablo to canter. The horse hesitated, unsure. The canter was faster than a trot, required more trust, more coordination. But Aunt May had been building toward this, preparing him with gentle transitions and constant reassurance. "Come on," she said, squeezing with her legs. "Let's try something new." Diablo broke into a canter, and suddenly they were flying. Not galloping, but moving fast enough that wind whipped Aunt May's hair back and her eyes watered. The power beneath her was incredible. 1,200 pounds of muscle moving in perfect rhythm. For 20 glorious seconds, they moved together like they were one creature instead of two. Like all the fear and pain and broken trust had been smoothed away by sheer forward motion. Then Diablo stumbled on a divot in the dirt. It was nothing serious, just a momentary loss of balance. But it spooked him, reminded him of vulnerability, and his instinct to flee kicked in. He tried to bolt, and Aunt May's weight shifted wrong, and suddenly she was falling again. This time she landed better, rolling with the impact, but it still knocked the wind from her lungs. She lay in the dirt gasping while Diablo ran to the far fence, wild-eyed and shaking. Martinez helped her up. "You okay?" "Fine." And May dusted herself off, assessing damage. Bruises, definitely, but nothing broken. "He just got scared. That's twice he's thrown you in a week. Maybe slow down." "I don't have time to slow down." And May limped toward Diablo, who was pressed against the fence. 7 days, Martinez, 7 days until Owen makes his decision. And if you push too hard, you'll lose everything you've gained. If I don't push hard enough, we lose anyway. She reached Diablo and started the slow work of calming him down again. Singing, touching, reassuring. It took an hour before his breathing returned to normal. Another hour before he'd let her anywhere near his back. By the time she finally got back in the saddle, the sun was setting and her body ached with exhaustion. But she rode him anyway, walking slow circles until full dark, proving to both of them that falling didn't mean failing. When she finally climbed down and removed his tack, Diablo pressed his forehead against her chest, their gesture of trust, the thing that said, "We're in this together." And May wrapped her arms around his neck and held on, breathing in the smell of horse and hay and hard-won progress. "6 more days," she whispered. "We can do this." But she wasn't sure she believed it anymore. 6 days became 5, and Aunt May spent every waking hour with Diablo. She rode him in the morning, walked him in the afternoon, groomed him in the evening until his coat shone like liquid night. The horse was responding better now, the stumble and fall already fading into the category of things that happened but didn't define them. His gaits were smoother, his responses to her cues more immediate. They were learning each other's language in real time. But there was a difference between riding in circles around a corral and proving to a ranch full of skeptics that this horse was truly broken. And May knew what Owen needed, a demonstration, something undeniable. And that meant opening the corral gate and riding Diablo in the open, where he could run if he wanted, where there were no fences to contain his fear. The thought terrified her. "You're thinking too much," Martinez said on the morning of day 5. He was leaning against the fence, watching her saddle Diablo with the ease of repetition. "I can see it on your face. I need to take him out of the corral. You also need to stay alive. Owen's not going to be impressed by a horse that only behaves in a controlled space. He needs to see Diablo can be ridden anywhere, by anyone." And May tightened the girth, checked the bridle. "Which means I need to prove it first." "Anyone is a strong word. That horse tolerates you. Doesn't mean he'll tolerate others. One problem at a time." And May mounted, settling into the saddle with the confidence that came from 5 days of not being thrown. "Today we're trying the paddock. Bigger space, still fenced, but room to actually move." Martinez looked skeptical, but didn't argue. He walked ahead and opened the gate that led from Diablo's corral to the larger paddock, maybe an acre of open dirt where they worked the younger horses. And May rode through, her heart hammering despite the calm expression she wore. Diablo's ears swiveled constantly, taking in the new space. His steps were high and nervous, ready to bolt at the slightest provocation. And May kept her hands light on the reins, her posture relaxed, trying to communicate through her body that everything was fine. "Just a walk," she murmured. "Nice and easy. Nothing scary here." They made it halfway around the paddock before Diablo saw the chickens. 3 hens had wandered through a gap in the fence, pecking at bugs in the dirt. When one fluttered its wings, Diablo spooked hard, jumping sideways, head up, every muscle coiled to run, and May nearly lost her seat, but managed to stay on by grabbing Maney and Saddlehorn. Whoa, whoa, easy. They're just chickens. They're more scared of you than you are of them. Diablo snorted, dancing in place, torn between flight and the trust he'd built with the small human on his back. It's okay, Aunt May said, keeping her voice steady even though her pulse was racing. Nothing's going to hurt you, see? They're leaving. The chickens wandered off, oblivious to the crisis they'd caused. Gradually, Diablo's breathing slowed and his muscles unclenched, and May stroked his neck, praising him, and they continued the circle at a walk. By the time they'd completed 3 full laps, the horse was relaxed enough to move into a trot, then a canter, and May asked him to change directions, to slow and speed up, to respond to her weight shifts and rein cues. Every request he answered, not perfectly but willingly. Martinez was grinning when they finally stopped. That was damn impressive. It was basic riding, Aunt May said, but she couldn't help smiling too. Nothing special. For a horse nobody could touch 3 months ago? It's special. Martinez opened the gate back to the corral. You ready for tomorrow? Tomorrow, 4 days left. And May's smile faded. What's tomorrow? Owen wants a demonstration. Word's gotten around about what you're doing. He's invited some of the neighboring ranchers to come watch. Says if Diablo's really rideable, he wants witnesses. And May's stomach dropped. He didn't tell me that. Probably didn't want to make you nervous. Martinez scratched his jaw. But yeah, tomorrow afternoon. Owen's setting it up like a show. Wants you to ride Diablo in front of an audience, prove the horse has value. And if I can't? Martinez's expression said everything his words didn't. If she couldn't perform, Owen would take Jenkins's offer and sell. The ranch would change hands, the horses would be auctioned, and Diablo would end up as dog food. I can do it, Aunt May said, trying to convince herself as much as Martinez. We're ready. You sure? No, she wasn't sure at all. But confidence and certainty were different things, and right now she needed to project the former even if she lacked the latter. We'll be ready, she amended. That night, Aunt May couldn't eat dinner. She sat in the bunkhouse pushing beans around her plate while the other ranch hands talked about the demonstration like it was a sporting event. Who was coming, what they'd bet on, whether the Chinese girl would finally prove everyone wrong or end up in the dirt where they'd expected her all along. She wanted to scream at them that this wasn't entertainment, that Diablo's life hung in the balance, but she kept her mouth shut and her head down, letting their words wash over her like dirty water. Around 9, she gave up on pretending and went to the corral. Diablo was waiting at the fence, as if he'd known she'd come. And May climbed the rails and sat on top, close enough to touch, but giving him space. Big day tomorrow, she said. Lot of people coming to watch us. No pressure or anything? The horse nickered softly. I know you don't understand what's at stake. Maybe that's better. All you have to do is what we've been practicing. Walk, trot, canter, turn, stop. Basic stuff. We can do basic stuff, right? Diablo moved closer, resting his head against her knee in that way he did when he was feeling generous. And May scratched behind his ears, finding the sweet spot that made his eyes half close. I wish I could explain this to you, she said quietly. Explain that tomorrow decides everything, whether you get to stay here, whether I get to be free, whether any of this suffering meant something. Her voice cracked. But maybe it's better you don't know. One of us should get to sleep tonight. She stayed there until midnight, talking nonsense and singing old songs, trying to memorize the feeling of this moment. The cool desert air, the sound of Diablo's breathing, the stars scattered overhead like broken promises. Whatever tomorrow brought, at least they'd had this. Months of small victories and hard-won trust. That had to count for something. When she finally climbed down and headed to the bunkhouse, Martinez was sitting on the steps smoking a cigarette. Can't sleep either? He asked. Not even close. Want some advice from an old man who's seen a lot of demonstrations go sideways? Sure. Don't try to impress anyone tomorrow. Don't go for fancy tricks or showing off. Just do what you know works. The basics done well are more impressive than complicated stuff done poorly. That's it? That's the advice? That's it. Martinez stubbed out his cigarette. And one more thing. No matter what happens tomorrow, you already did the impossible. You took a horse everyone said was unbreakable, and you broke through to him. Not with force, not with dominance, but with patience and kindness. That matters, even if Owen and his rancher friends don't appreciate it. And May felt her throat tighten. Thanks, Martinez. Get some sleep, girl. Tomorrow you make history. But sleep was impossible, and May lay in her bunk staring at shadows on the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. Diablo cooperating perfectly. Diablo spooked by the crowd. Diablo throwing her in front of everyone. Her success. Her failure. The ranch saved. The ranch sold. Around 3 a.m, she gave up and went back outside. The ranch was silver under the moon, everything quiet except for the occasional horse shifting in sleep. And May walked to the paddock, climbed the fence, and just sat there breathing the cool night air. She must have dozed off sitting up, because suddenly Martinez was shaking her shoulder and the sun was rising. It's time, he said. People are already arriving. And May's stomach flipped. She'd somehow managed to forget that sunrise would actually come, that tomorrow would become today. She climbed down stiffly, her back protesting from sleeping against a fence post. How many people? Maybe 20 so far. Owen invited every rancher within 50 miles. Some brought their hands, too, wanting to see the show. Martinez's expression was worried. It's a lot of eyes on May. Great, perfect, exactly what we needed. They walked back to the bunkhouse together, and May splashed water on her face, changed into the cleanest clothes she owned, still dusty and worn, but the best she had. Her hands were shaking as she braided her hair back. Through the window, she could see trucks arriving, men gathering near the main paddock. Owen was there, shaking hands, playing host. He'd set up the demonstration like a rodeo, fence rails where people could stand, a cleared area in the center, even someone's radio playing country music like this was a celebration. And May wanted to throw up. You got this, Martinez said, appearing beside her with a cup of coffee. Drink this. Settle your nerves. The coffee was terrible and too hot, but May drank it anyway, letting the burn focus her scattered thoughts. Through the window, she could see more people arriving. 20 had become 30. 30 was becoming 40. Why are there so many? Word spread. The impossible horse getting tamed by a girl who's never ridden before? That's the kind of story people want to see for themselves. Martinez squeezed her shoulder. They're expecting you to fail, most of them. Prove them wrong. And May set down the empty cup and walked outside before she could talk herself out of it. The crowd turned to watch her approach, conversations dying down as they assessed her. She could read their thoughts on their faces. This tiny slip of a girl was supposed to ride Diablo? The horse that had hospitalized 8 men? Owen intercepted her before she reached the paddock. Ready? Do I have a choice? Not really. He tried to smile, but it came out wrong. More grimace than reassurance. Just ride him like you've been doing. Nothing fancy. Show these people he's controllable. What if he's not? What if he spooks? Then you've got a fence between him and the audience, Owen said. But he won't spook, will he? It was phrased like a question, but felt like a command. And May nodded, not trusting her voice. Diablo was already saddled and bridled, courtesy of Martinez who'd prepared him, while May was drinking coffee and trying not to panic. The horse looked calm, almost bored, like crowds of gawking humans were nothing to worry about. And May wished she felt the same. She led Diablo to the paddock entrance. The crowd pressed closer to the fence, everyone jockeying for the best view. And May caught fragments of conversation, bets being placed, odds calculated, skepticism thick enough to choke on. You see how small she is? Never gonna work. $5 says she doesn't make it 30 seconds. And May blocked it out. She'd spent months learning to read Diablo's moods, to understand his language. Now she needed him to understand hers. She pressed her forehead against his neck, breathing in the familiar smell of him. It's just us, she whispered. Forget everyone else. It's just you and me doing what we've practiced 100 times. Diablo's ear flicked toward her voice. I need you to trust me one more time. Can you do that? The horse didn't answer, of course, but when May led him into the paddock, he followed without resistance. She closed the gate behind them, and suddenly the crowd felt very close and very loud despite being on the other side of the fence. Martinez had positioned himself near the gate, ready to intervene if things went wrong. Owen stood with the other ranchers, arms crossed, face unreadable. The whole world seemed to be holding its breath. And May mounted in one smooth motion, muscle memory from countless repetitions carrying her through the nervousness. Diablo stood perfectly still beneath her, and for a moment everything was fine. Then someone's dog barked. It was sharp and sudden, the kind of sound that cut through everything else. Diablo's head jerked up, ears flat, every muscle tensing. And May felt him coil beneath her, preparing to bolt. "Easy," she said, keeping her voice low and calm even though her heart was trying to escape her chest. "You're okay. Just a dog. You've heard dogs before." But this dog was different, too close, too loud, attached to too many unfamiliar people. Diablo danced sideways, fighting the bit, wanting to run. The crowd murmured. Someone laughed. And May heard distinctly. "Here we go. Told you she couldn't do it." Something hot and fierce flared in on May's chest. Anger, maybe, or just pure stubborn refusal to give these people what they expected. She sat deeper in the saddle, her legs firm against Diablo's sides, her hands steady on the reins. "No," she said firmly. "We're not doing this. You're not running. We're going to walk." She squeezed with her legs, asking for forward movement. For a long moment, Diablo didn't respond. He was locked in that space between trust and instinct, between the months with May and the years of trauma before her. Then, slowly, he took a step forward. The crowd went quiet. May asked for another step. Diablo gave it. Then another. They were walking now, not smoothly, but moving, circling the paddock with the entire world watching. "Good boy," May murmured. "That's it, just like we practiced." She asked for a trot. Diablo hesitated, then transitioned. His gait was rough at first, rushed with nervous energy, but May sat it out until he found his rhythm. They made 2 full laps at a trot before she asked him to slow back to a walk. Someone in the crowd whistled, low and impressed, and May changed direction, asking Diablo to bend his body the opposite way, to flex muscles he wasn't used to using. The horse complied, ears forward now instead of pinned back. He was listening to her, trusting her. She asked for a canter. This was the dangerous part. The canter was fast enough that if Diablo decided to bolt, May wouldn't be able to stop him. He could jump the fence, could run until his heart burst, could take her with him into whatever disaster his fear created. But he didn't. Diablo broke into a canter, smooth and powerful, nothing like the panicked flight from weeks ago. He moved in collected circles, his body arched and balanced, responding to the smallest shifts in May's weight and hands. They must have looked like something from a dream, the massive black stallion and the tiny girl riding him like they were one creature instead of 2. May asked him to slow. He slowed. Asked him to halt. He halted, standing square and calm in the center of the paddock, while 40 people stared in disbelief. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was Diablo's breathing and the distant radio still playing country songs about heartbreak and redemption. Then someone started clapping. Just one person at first, then another. Then the whole crowd erupted into applause and cheers. Men who'd bet against her were shaking their heads in wonder. Owen was smiling, actually smiling, not the bitter grimace he usually wore, but something real and almost hopeful. May dismounted on shaking legs and threw her arms around Diablo's neck, pressing her face against his mane while the crowd celebrated. The horse stood patient, accepting her gratitude, and May could swear she felt something like pride radiating from him. "You did it," she whispered. "You beautiful, impossible creature. You did it." Martinez was first through the gate, grinning so wide his face looked like it might crack. "That was, girl, I don't even have words. That was perfect." "It wasn't perfect," May said, but she was smiling too. "He almost bolted at the beginning." "But he didn't. That's what matters." Martinez took Diablo's reins, giving May a moment to catch her breath. "You showed everyone here what's possible when you treat an animal with respect instead of force." The other ranchers were coming over now, wanting to get closer to the legendary devil horse. Owen was fielding questions, explaining the training process, or his version of it anyway, while men examined Diablo like he was a prize at auction. One rancher, older with a weathered face and expensive boots, approached May directly. "That your horse?" "No, sir. He belongs to Mr. Grayson." "You train him yourself?" "Yes, sir." The man studied her for a long moment. "I got a mare that won't trailer. Been trying to sell her for 6 months, but nobody wants a horse that can't be transported. You interested in a job?" And May blinked. "A job? Training, fixing problem horses. I'll pay you $50 a week plus room and board, and I got at least 3 animals that need work. Could be steady employment if you're interested." Before May could respond, another rancher interrupted. "I'll give you $70 a week. Got a whole string of rescues that are barely handleable. You work the magic you worked on this one, I'll pay double." "Gentlemen," Owen said, stepping between them with an edge in his voice, "this is my ranch hand. You want her services, you negotiate with me." The ranchers backed off, but May could see the calculations in their eyes. She'd just become valuable, marketable. The girl who tamed the untamable horse was a commodity now, and everyone wanted a piece. The crowd eventually dispersed, trucks kicking up dust as they drove away. But the energy of the demonstration hung in the air like electricity. And May walked Diablo back to his corral, removed his tack, gave him extra apples and scratches. "You're going to be famous now," she told him. "Everyone's going to want to meet the devil horse who turned gentle. Hope you're ready for that." Diablo just yawned, showing all his teeth, completely unbothered by his new celebrity status. Owen found her as she was finishing up. He leaned against the fence, studying the horse with an expression May couldn't quite read. "That was something," he said finally. "Thank you." "I mean it. That was—" He shook his head. "I've been around horses my whole life, seen every training method there is. But what you did, I've never seen anything like it. I just listened to him, figured out what he needed instead of forcing what I wanted. Most people can't manage that with other humans, let alone a 1,000-pound animal." Owen pulled out his cigarettes, lit one. "Got 3 offers to buy him already. Top offer was $12,000. And May's stomach clenched. "You're going to sell him?" "What? No, hell no." Owen took a drag. "That horse is worth more as a stud than he ever would be as a sale. I can breed him now, sell his offspring for premium prices. You just saved this ranch, girl." "So I'm free?" Owen looked at her sharply. "What?" "Our deal. I tamed the horse. You clear my debt. I'm free to leave." For a moment, Owen didn't respond, and May could see him working through the implications, weighing the value of keeping her against the promise he'd made. The rancher's job offers hung unspoken between them. "Yeah," Owen said finally. "Yeah, a deal's a deal. Your debt's cleared." He stubbed out his cigarette. "But before you run off to work for Fletcher or Martinez or whoever offered you the most money, let me make a counteroffer." "I'm listening." "Stay here. Not as debt labor, but as a proper employee. I'll pay you $100 a week plus room and board. You manage Diablo's breeding program, train the young stock, handle any problem horses that come through. Full partnership in the operation." And May stared at him. $100 a week? You're worth it. Probably worth more, but that's what I can afford right now. Owen met her eyes. You turned this ranch around. I'd be an idiot to let you walk away. I need to think about it. Fair enough. But in May? Owen's expression softened slightly. Whatever you decide, thank you. You did something I didn't think was possible. That matters. He walked away, leaving May alone with Diablo in a future that suddenly had options instead of just obligations. That evening, the ranch hands threw together an impromptu celebration. Someone produced a bottle of whiskey, Martinez grilled steaks that probably came from their emergency supplies, and even Tommy brought out a guitar to play songs that were more enthusiasm than skill. The mood was lighter than May had ever seen, like maybe, possibly, things were going to work out. Martinez sat beside her on the bunkhouse steps, both of them nursing drinks they didn't really want. What are you going to do? He asked. About Owen's offer? About everything. And May watched Diablo in his corral, the horse finally relaxed and peaceful. I don't know. Fletcher's offer was good. The other guy's was better. I could make real money, build a reputation, maybe even start my own training operation someday. But? But I don't know them, don't know if they'll keep their word, don't know how they treat their animals when nobody's watching. She took a sip of whiskey, coughed at the burn. Owen's not perfect, but he's honest. And Diablo's here. Walking away means leaving him with people who might not understand him the way I do. That horse would be fine, Martinez said gently. You taught him to trust. That doesn't disappear just because you do. Maybe, or maybe he'd regress without someone who understands what he needs. And May set down her glass. 3 months ago, I would have taken any offer that got me away from here, but now it's home, Martinez finished. And May wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. Somewhere between the endless desert sun and the slow work of healing a broken horse, this place had become something more than a prison. Not perfect, not easy, but hers in a way nothing had been hers before. I think I'm going to stay, she said. Martinez smiled. Good. This place needs you. That horse definitely needs you. He stood up, stretched, and if I'm being honest, I need you too. Gets lonely being the only one around here with any sense. The celebration continued until late, the ranch hands finally relaxing after months of tension about the future. And May slipped away eventually, too keyed up to sleep despite her exhaustion. She walked to Diablo's corral one more time, found him waiting at the fence like he always was. I'm staying, she told him. Hope that's okay with you. Diablo pressed his forehead against her palm, his version of approval. And May climbed the fence and sat on top, looking out at the dark desert. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes sang their strange harmonies. The stars wheeled overhead in patterns she was just beginning to recognize. And for the first time since her father died, since Chen's brother showed up with that debt, since she'd arrived at this failing ranch with nothing but fear and determination, and May felt something close to peace. She'd done it, the impossible thing, the thing nobody believed could happen. She'd taken a horse everyone said was unbreakable and shown him that trust was still possible. That connection could survive trauma, that patience and kindness could accomplish what force never would, and in doing so, she'd saved herself too. Thank you, she whispered to Diablo, to the desert, to whatever forces had brought her to this moment. Thank you for not giving up on me when I almost gave up on myself. The horse stood quiet beside her, and on May let herself believe, really believe, that tomorrow would come and she'd still be here. Not as property or debt labor, but as someone who'd earned her place through the hardest work she'd ever done. The work of healing, the work of trust, the work of proving that broken things could be made whole if someone cared enough to try. Morning came with Owen standing at her bunk, coffee in hand and purpose written across his face. And May blinked awake, disoriented by the sunlight streaming through the cracked window. We need to talk, Owen said. Office. 10 minutes. He left before she could respond, and Anmei dressed quickly, her mind racing through possibilities. Had he changed his mind about clearing her debt? Had one of the ranchers made an offer he couldn't refuse? Had something happened to Diablo? The office looked different in daylight, less like a cave of despair and more like a workspace someone had simply neglected. Owen was behind his desk, papers spread out, looking more sober and focused than Anmei had seen him in months. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair she'd moved catalogs from once before. Anmei sat. I've been doing math, Owen began. Real math, not the wishful thinking I've been operating on. The demonstration yesterday brought in interest. 3 ranchers want to use Diablo as a stud. That's guaranteed income, $6,000 a year minimum if we're smart about it. He tapped the papers. I also got offers from people wanting you to train their problem horses. Not buying them, just training. $2,500 per horse, average 6 weeks per animal. That's good, right? It's better than good. It's salvation. Owen leaned back. But here's the thing. I can't do this alone. Managing a breeding program, handling outside training contracts, keeping the ranch running. I need a partner, not just an employee. And May's stomach flipped. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to make you a real offer, not $100 a week. A percentage. 20% of all profits from Diablo's breeding and the training program. You build it, you manage it, you profit from it. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. I had a lawyer friend draw this up. It's a proper contract. Partnership agreement. You'd have say in how things run, how money gets spent, all of it. And May stared at the document. The words blurred together, legal language she barely understood, but the intent was clear. Owen was offering her a future, a real one. Why? She asked. Because I'm tired of failing, Owen said bluntly. I've been trying to run this place the same way my father did, and it's been slowly killing me and everything I touch. You came in here with nothing and changed everything by doing the exact opposite of what I thought was right. That's worth more than a weekly wage. I don't know anything about business. You know horses. You know how to fix what's broken. The business part we can figure out together. Owen's expression softened slightly. Look, I'm not good at this. Asking for help, admitting I need someone, but yesterday proved I'd be an idiot to let you walk away. So I'm asking, be my partner. Help me turn this place into something that doesn't just survive, but actually thrives. And May picked up the contract, scanning the words again. 20%. Partnership. Her name on something that mattered. I need a day to think about it, she said. Take 2. But on May? Owen met her eyes. Whatever you decide, your debt's still cleared. You don't owe me anything. This is me hoping you'll choose to stay because you want to, not because you have to. She left the office with the contract folded in her pocket and too many thoughts crowding her head. Martinez found her by the water pump, splashing cold water on her face. Owen make you the offer? He asked. How did you? I suggested it. Told him he'd be a damn fool to let you leave. Martinez handed her a towel. What'd you say? That I needed time to think. What's there to think about? It's a good deal. Is it? And May dried her face, staring out at the ranch. Or is it just a different kind of trap? I'd be tied to this place, to Owen, to decisions I don't control. What if it fails? What if it succeeds? Martinez interrupted. What if you build something real here, something that's actually yours? Nothing's ever really mine, Aunt May said quietly. Every time I think I've found solid ground, it disappears. My parents, the restaurant, the life I thought I'd have, it all just evaporates. Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then, you know what the difference is between you and Owen? Between you and most people who end up broken? What? You keep trying. You don't just survive, you fight to make things better. That horse in the corral, he's alive and healthy because you refuse to accept that broken meant worthless. This ranch is turning around because you wouldn't let failure be the only option. He squeezed her shoulder. Whatever you decide, you've already won. You proved you're not just someone things happen to. You're someone who makes things happen. And May walked to Diablo's corral, needing to think without the weight of human expectations. The horse greeted her at the fence, and she climbed over to stand beside him in the dirt. What do you think? She asked. Should I stay? Diablo lipped at her hair, searching for treats she didn't have. Yeah, I know. You just want apples. Very helpful. She leaned against his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him. But seriously, I could leave. Take one of those other offers. Make more money, see new places. Not be tied to Owen's mess. The horse shifted his weight, pressing back against her slightly. Or I could stay. Build something here. Make this place into what I wished existed when I was alone and scared. And May closed her eyes. The problem is I don't know if I'm staying because it's right or because I'm afraid to leave. Because this is comfortable now, and leaving means risk. Diablo turned his head and nuzzled her shoulder, the gesture so gentle it made her throat tight. You'd be fine without me, Aunt May whispered. You know that, right? You're not that scared horse anymore. You could have anyone working with you now. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. Diablo had learned to trust her specifically, had built their relationship on months of patient consistency. A new trainer might be competent, but they wouldn't be her. Wouldn't know that he liked his right ear scratched more than his left. Wouldn't understand that he needed 10 minutes alone after being saddled to process the weight before anyone mounted. She'd built something here. Not just with the horse, but with Martinez and even Owen in his gruff way. The other ranch hands had started nodding to her at meals, asking her advice about their own animals. Tommy had shown her pictures of his sister's kids, treating her like she was permanent rather than temporary. Somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being the outsider. That evening, Aunt May found Owen in the barn, repairing a broken stall door. He looked up when she approached, trying to read her expression. "I'll do it," she said. "The partnership. I'll stay." Owen's face broke into something that wasn't quite a smile, but was close enough. "Yeah? On one condition." "Name it." "Martinez gets a raise, 10% minimum. He's been holding this place together while you were drinking yourself sideways, and he deserves more than survival wages." Owen blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. The sound rusty from disuse. "Done. Anything else?" "Yeah, we do this right. No more just scraping by. We invest in the horses, in the facilities, in building something that lasts." And May crossed her arms. "And if you fall back into the bottle so hard you can't run this place, I get full operational control until you're sober again. That's in the contract or I don't sign." Owen's expression sobered. "That's harsh. That's protection. For me, for Martinez, for the animals. You want a partner? Partners keep each other honest." For a long moment, Owen just looked at her. Then he extended his hand. "Deal." They shook on it, and May felt the weight of the decision settle onto her shoulders. Not crushing, but present, real. She was committed now. The next 3 months moved like a river, sometimes smooth, sometimes rough, but always forward. And May threw herself into building the training program, starting with 2 problem horses from neighboring ranches. One was a mare that wouldn't load into a trailer, the other a gelding that kicked anyone who approached from behind. She used the same methods that had worked with Diablo: patience, consistency, understanding what the animal needed rather than forcing what she wanted. The mare loaded within 4 weeks. The gelding stopped kicking in 5. Both owners paid the full $2,500 and spread word that the girl at Grayson Ranch could work miracles. More horses came, and May hired Tommy to help with the basic care work, freeing her up to focus on the actual training. She spent hours in the corral, sometimes working with 3 different animals in a single day, each one teaching her something new about communication and trust. Diablo's first breeding season was a success. 3 mares were confirmed pregnant, with deposits on 2 more for the following year. Owen reinvested the money into fence repairs, new equipment, proper feed instead of whatever was cheapest. The ranch started looking less like a place slowly dying and more like a place rebuilding. But not everything was smooth. And May and Owen fought regularly about methods, money, priorities. He wanted to take on more training contracts faster than she thought was wise. She wanted to invest in better facilities before expanding. They'd argue in his office, voices rising, until Martinez would walk in and tell them both to shut up and compromise. Usually, they did. "You're good for him," Martinez told May one evening. They were watching Owen work with one of the young horses. Actually work, not just bark orders at someone else. "He's been sober 2 months now, longest stretch in years." "He's got reasons to stay sober now," May said. "The ranch is making money. There's hope." The ranch was his father's obsession. The drinking was Owen trying to drown the pressure of living up to a dead man's expectations. Martinez glanced at her. "But you gave him something else to focus on. A different way of doing things. Permission to fail at the old way and succeed at something new." And May watched Owen guide the young horse through a turn, his movements patient and unhurried. He was learning. They all were. 6 months in, Owen called another meeting in his office. This time, the papers he showed on May were bank statements and profit projections, all trending upward. "We're in the black," he said, and his voice held something like wonder. "For the first time in 3 years, we're actually making more than we're spending. That's good. It's better than good. Owen shook his head. "I didn't think this was possible. Not really. I offered you that partnership half believing we'd just fail slower together." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," May said dryly. "I'm serious. You saved this place. You saved me." Owen met her eyes, "And I want to make sure you know that. So I'm increasing your percentage to 30%. And I'm putting your name on the deed." And May stared. "What?" "The ranch deed. Your name goes on it along with mine, equal ownership. If something happens to me, you don't lose everything you've built." He slid the paperwork across the desk. "It's already drawn up, just needs your signature." "Owen, I can't." "You can, and you will. This place is as much yours as mine now. Probably more if we're being honest. You put in the work, You earned it. And May's hand shook as she picked up the pen. Her name on a deed, ownership of land and future and something permanent. She signed before she could overthink it, her signature looking small and uncertain next to Owen's bold scrawl. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me. You earned every bit of this." Owen stood, extended his hand again. "Partners?" "Partners," Unmay confirmed, shaking his hand. That evening, she found Diablo in his corral, now expanded to twice the size with proper shelter and better fencing. The horse had filled out over the months, his coat gleaming with health, the scars on his hide faded but still visible. Permanent reminders of where he'd been. "I own half a ranch now," Unmay told him. "Can you believe that? Me, the girl who couldn't afford bus fare 6 months ago." Diablo pressed his nose against her palm, and Anmei felt the familiar rush of affection for this impossible animal who'd changed everything. "None of this happens without you," she said. "You know that? You're the one who made people pay attention, made me believe I could do something that mattered." The horse nickered softly, and Anmei scratched behind his ears. She'd started riding him outside the corrals now, taking him on long trails through the desert where he could stretch his legs and remember what freedom felt like. Sometimes Owen came along, and they'd ride in companionable silence, just two people who'd learned to trust each other through shared work and mutual respect. 9 months after the demonstration, Anmei stood in the paddock working with a particularly stubborn 3-year-old when she noticed Owen watching from the fence. His expression was strange, soft in a way she'd never seen before. "What?" she called. "Nothing, just watching you work." Owen climbed the fence and sat on the top rail. "You make it look easy." "It's not easy. That colt's been fighting me for 2 weeks." "But you're not giving up." "Giving up isn't an option," Anmei said, leading the colt through another circle. "He just needs time to figure out I'm not a threat." "That's what I mean. You've got patience I'll never have." Owen was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "You ever regret staying, taking the partnership instead of one of those other offers?" Anmei considered the question. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd left, whether I'd be making more money, seeing different places." She brought the colt to a stop, rewarded him with a scratch. "But no, I don't regret it. This place," she gestured around. "It's home. First real one I've had." "It's home for me too," Owen said. "Finally feels like it again anyway. For a while it was just my father's ghost and a whole lot of failure. But you changed that." "We changed it," Anmei corrected. "Both of us. Martinez too. Even Tommy in his way." Owen smiled. "Fair enough." Over the following months, Anmei noticed Owen finding excuses to work near wherever she was, asking her opinion on things that had nothing to do with horses, staying up late in the barn talking about nothing in particular while they cleaned tack or sorted feed. Martinez noticed too, shooting Anmei knowing looks that she pretended not to understand. "He's sweet on you," Martinez said one evening, too blunt to dance around it. "He's my business partner." "He's a man who looks at you like you hung the moon. There's a difference." Anmei felt her face heat. "It's not like that." "Isn't it?" Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Girl, I'm old, but I'm not blind, and neither are you." She wanted to deny it, but the truth was she'd noticed the same thing, the way Owen's expression softened when she walked into a room. How he'd started dressing better, drinking less, laughing more. Small changes that added up to something that made her nervous and hopeful in equal measure. One evening, nearly a year after the demonstration, Owen asked her to ride out to the far pasture with him. They rode in silence, watching the sun paint the desert in shades of amber and gold. When they reached the top of a small rise, Owen dismounted and helped Anmei down from Diablo. "I want to show you something," he said. He led her to a flat stretch of ground where someone had staked out a rough perimeter with string and wooden stakes. "What is this?" Anmei asked. "A house. Or it will be." Owen looked almost embarrassed. "I've been saving money from the breeding program. Thought it was time to build something new instead of just patching up the old main house forever." "That's great, Owen. I was thinking—" He stopped, started again. "I was hoping you'd help me design it. Since you'll be living here long-term, figured you should have say in what it looks like." And May's heart did something complicated in her chest. Living here? Well, yeah. Unless you're planning to leave, which Owen ran his hand through his hair, which I really hope you're not, because this partnership, this ranch, it works because of you, and I've gotten used to having you around. More than used to it, if I'm being honest. Owen, let me finish. I'm not good at this. He took a breath. You came here as someone else's debt and turned into the best thing that ever happened to this place. To me. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my business partner and started seeing you as... He gestured helplessly. As someone I don't want to imagine my life without. And May felt tears prick her eyes. You're saying you have feelings for me. I'm saying I think I'm falling in love with you, Owen said. And I know that's complicated because we work together and you're younger and I'm probably the last person you'd ever... And May kissed him, just stepped forward and pressed her lips to his, cutting off his spiraling words. Owen froze for a second, then kissed her back, his hands coming up to cup her face like she was something precious. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Owen looked dazed. So, he said, does that mean... It means I feel the same way, May said. It means I stayed because of the ranch, but also because of you. Because somewhere between the fighting and the rebuilding, I started caring about you as more than just a business partner. Owen pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. We're going to make this work. The ranch, us, all of it. We already are, May said. They stood there as the sun set, two people who'd been broken by life and had somehow managed to rebuild each other in the process. The house took 6 months to build. May designed it with Martinez's help. Simple, but solid, with wide windows that let in the desert light and a porch where you could sit and watch the horses graze. They moved in together once it was finished, and the ranch hands pretended not to notice that the boss and his partner had become something more. 2 years after May first arrived, the Grayson Ranch was unrecognizable from the failing operation it had been. The breeding program was thriving, with a waiting list for Diablo's offspring. The training operation brought in steady income and growing reputation. They'd expanded the facilities, hired 3 more hands, bought better stock. And May stood in the center of it all, no longer the scared 18-year-old who'd been traded like property. She was 20 now, taller somehow, despite the years not adding actual height, stronger from constant work, and confident in ways she'd never imagined possible. On a bright morning in spring, she saddled Diablo, older now, calmer, but still powerful, and rode out into the desert alone. No destination, no purpose, except the pure joy of movement. The horse beneath her moved with perfect trust, responding to the smallest cues, and May felt the weight of everything she'd survived and overcome. She'd been sold to pay a debt she didn't owe. Been given an impossible task by a desperate man, been mocked, dismissed, and expected to fail by everyone who mattered, and she'd taken all of that and built something beautiful anyway. When she returned to the ranch, Owen was waiting by the barn with that soft expression he wore now when he looked at her. Martinez was arguing with Tommy about the proper way to muck a stall. The horses were grazing peacefully in the expanded pastures, home, real and solid and hers. Good ride? Owen asked as she dismounted. The best, May said. She kissed him quickly, then led Diablo to his stall. The horse that had broken 32 men now stood patient while she removed his tack, accepting her care with the ease of old routine. You saved me, you know, she told Diablo quietly, brushing down his coat. Everyone thinks I saved you, but it was both of us saving each other. The horse turned his head, and May could swear he understood every word. That evening, the whole crew gathered for dinner, a tradition they'd started where everyone ate together once a week. Owen cooked, which meant the steaks were burned and the beans were too salty, but nobody complained. They sat around the big table in the new house, passing food and stories, and May looked at these people who'd become her family. Martinez, who'd believed in her when she had no reason to believe in herself. Tommy, who'd grown from a scared kid into a competent hand. The other workers who'd learned to respect her not because she demanded it, but because she'd earned it through consistent competence and kindness. And Owen, who'd given her a chance when he had every reason not to, who'd fallen in love with her somewhere between the fighting and the building, who looked at her now like she was the answer to questions he'd stopped asking. I have an announcement, Owen said, standing up and quieting the table. And May and I have been talking, and we've decided to make some changes to how we run things. And May's heart jumped. They'd discussed this, but she hadn't expected him to announce it tonight. Effective immediately, and May is taking over full management of the training program. I'll still handle breeding and general operations, but the problem horse work is all hers, which means— Owen pulled out a piece of paper. Which means we're hiring 2 more trainers to work under her. The business has grown beyond what one person can manage. The table erupted in congratulations and questions, and May felt overwhelmed by the support, by the acknowledgement that what she'd built was real and valuable enough to expand. Later, when everyone had left and it was just her and Owen cleaning up, she leaned against the counter and took it all in. "You okay?" Owen asked, drying dishes. "Yeah, just thinking about how different everything is from when I got here." "Different better or different worse?" "Better. So much better it's almost scary." And May set down the plate she'd been washing. "Sometimes I worry I'll wake up and it'll all be gone, that this is too good to be real." Owen pulled her into his arms, and Anmei pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "It's real," he said. "You made it real, and it's not going anywhere. Promise?" "I promise. We built this together, and we're going to keep building it, whatever comes next." And May held on tighter, letting herself believe it, letting herself trust that this— the ranch, the work, the love— was permanent in ways nothing else had been. 3 years after that first desperate day in the corral, Anmei rode Diablo across open desert with no saddle and no bridle, just her and the horse moving together through space, trusting each other completely. The wind whipped her hair back, and the sun beat down, and everything was perfect in its imperfection. She'd started with nothing and built a life worth living. Had taken broken things— herself, the horse, the ranch— and proven they could be made whole through patience and care. When she finally turned Diablo back toward home, she could see the buildings in the distance, solid and real under the endless sky. Her name was on the deed to that land. Her future was written into every fence post and training corral. She was free. Finally, truly free. Not because someone had given her freedom as a gift, but because she'd claimed it through work and determination and refusing to accept that broken meant worthless. As they approached the barn, Anmei saw Owen step out to meet her, shielding his eyes against the sun. Diablo nickered a greeting, and Anmei felt that familiar surge of love for these 2 stubborn, complicated souls who'd become her whole world. She'd come here expecting to fail, expected to be crushed by impossible odds and cruel circumstances. Instead, she'd found something better than freedom or success or any single victory. She'd found home, and she was never letting it go.